me and Ryan have been officially welcomed to the jungle that is Barstool Sports.
Our white whale, Sidney Crosby.
Shave his head! Shave his head! Shave his head!
Ryan Whitney, Paul Bissonette, R.A., Mike Grinelli, Spittin Chiclets.
What is up, folks? We are back. Episode 529 of the Spittin Chiclets podcast, presented to you by New Amsterdam Vodka and Pink Whitney. Shout out Pink Whitney. Shout out the fall and football weather and hockey being back and the Pink Whitney birdie buckets and the shot skis that go around bars that people send me videos of that me and Murls were forced to do in London, Ontario. And I say forced. It's not that I was forced to drink the Pink Whitney. It was that I was forced to have one at like 10 a.m. sitting down trying to have a coffee. So shout out Pink Whitney. Shout out the big old bottle. That's Biz's favorite. I believe one of the episodes he was like tugging it off. Probably not the best look we've ever had, but it's Pink Whitney and it's New Amsterdam and it's Spittin Chiclets and we're back. What an amazing week of hockey we had. But Biz, how are you doing, buddy? How are you getting settled in Scottsdale?
Well, don't forget to mention Murls started putting Pink Whitney in his coffee instead of Bailey's. That's kind of
true.
the new thing, I guess.
True.
And if you run out of treats for Halloween, just give the kids some nips. Just put it right in their. What do you put them in now? Those little pumpkins, the carved out pumpkins. The plastic pumpkins.
Or just like, maybe even pour some in like a different bottle. So it's like apple juice, but it's pink apple juice. Don't worry, Mr. Reynolds. Don't worry. And then his kids just waffled and walking around the neighborhood. This is probably not ideal either. I think you had mentioned another time, not only to really be zen and to maybe meditate while my kids are screaming in the house, but there was another thing you mentioned recently to do with kids that was, I think, was it edibles? Was it give a kid an edible?
Yeah, the 100 milligram. Well, if you want to get some work done around the house, maybe you want to paint one of your bedrooms, just shut them down for a couple days.
How much painting you think I've ever done in my house, me personally?
I don't know. Have you never painted before?
I got stuck painting something growing up as a punishment. I think it was because for some reason, was trying to hack down a tree in my front yard. It was a beautiful, maple tree too. And then my dad saw me and then, the woods ruined forever. And I had to paint something as a punishment. I have vague recollection of that.
I thought maybe you had damaged it. It kind of, it just reminded me. I remember my dad got this brand new green Aerostar van. Remember the Ford Aerostars? Yeah. They got to bring those back. Classy van. And I had a bike and he used to hang them on a hook in the garage. And I said, "Hey, Dad, you mind getting my bike down?" He's like, "Yeah, give me a minute. I'm doing something else." Well, I got impatient. I took the bike down myself and I was wheeling it out the garage and the handlebars on both sides.
Right on the Astro van?
On the brand new van. And then my mom's car, he was not
got both
happy.
Cars?
Oh, both cars with the handlebars trying to split the D.
So your impatient side has been around long before pro hockey.
Exactly. Very impatient. But as far as my weekend, it was pretty relaxed. I think I was in bed at about 11 o'clock, 11:30 on Saturday. That was after going to see the Suns home opener. I got to see them play the Dallas Mavericks. So I've gotten to see that Jokic guy who ended up winning MVP last year. And then, is it Doncic?
Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic. What a fascinating player.
So at my one game I was watching the Dallas Mavericks against the Celtics. He's like chubby. He's like a big chubby guy, but so silky.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. He played most of the game. Normally guys are subbing in and out. I would say that of any of the star players, he was on the court the longest, it felt like. He dropped a 40 piece, but he just had his hands all over the game. And it never really felt like his heart rate got super elevated, although maybe the movements didn't look fast. The way that he was able to stretch out and just maneuver out there, it was fascinating. Kind of like Jokic as big guys, but both guys have a little bit of chubbiness to them. But if they're able to kind of throw their weight around, get rebounds, great mitts on the guy too. And then it was cool seeing Kyrie Irving and his handles. And then Devin Booker wasn't playing the first game I'd ever went and watched. That was last year. So all the stars were on display. Kevin Durant had a huge night for them, and it was a good time. I went with my friend Coach Dar, and she treated me to the game. So it was a great experience. But other than that, a very relaxing weekend. And throughout that whole process, got to watch that Leafs game. I went to Rafi's hockey game beforehand, was watching the Leaf game on my phone, and then obviously saw that they tied it up late and then lost to the Bees. But a little disappointed in my Leafs lately, dropping 3 in a row now, but we don't need to start there. We're on a positive note right now.
No, let's go into the Oklahoma City Thunder starting 5, and then we can go through the rest of the NBA. And that was breaking down the NBA. Actually, the best NBA, some of the best, funniest sporting news of the weekend came out of the NBA. And when I got to see Dwayne Wade's new statue.
Oh, yeah, that was tough.
Keith Yandel texted the group today, like, can we not do something about statue technology? Like, how in this day and age are the statues this bad? I think somebody sent a Cristiano Ronaldo one where he just looks homeless.
It looks like he's missing a chromosome in that one.
The Dwayne Wade one, though, I saw somebody on Twitter kind of put the statue as a meme on the famous picture of him throwing that alley-oop to LeBron. But that was great in the NBA. And then before we really get into hockey, and I do have something to say about my weekend or week, one of the best bloopers I've ever seen in my life, Tyreek Stevenson of the Chicago Bears.
Oh, God, this is brutal.
I mean, I can't get over this video. And for anyone who doesn't know, I think he's a safety or a cornerback on the Bears, and the Bears are up a couple points, I think 2 points, whatever, 3 points against the Washington Commanders. There's no time left. It's a Hail Mary play. And this clown is in the back of the end zone talking shit to the Commanders fans, just laughing at him, going like this, we got you. Enough where he ends up having to sprint over once the Hail Mary's thrown.
That was the craziest part. Doing it before the snap.
Yes.
Okay, maybe that was their fan section where there was a lot of them and he's trying to hype them up to close out the win. But the fact that he's still doing it, he turns around and the wide receivers have halfway down the field ran their routes, and then he's like, oh shit, and then he sprints over. With the fact that he gets his hand on the ball and tips it to the guy.
Best karma moment ever.
That was worse than any of those touchdowns where the guys dropped the ball at the 1 yard line.
Way worse.
Way worse.
Because in that it's a bonehead play, it's a stupid play, but you're also like so excited to score and celebrate. This one, you're blatantly like, the game's over. And the best part of the clip is you could see some Bears Bears fans pointing to him like, buddy, the play. and then like after it came out that he was apparently supposed to be following, it's like Noah Brown or Nolan Brown, the guy who caught it. Like that was his guy the whole play.
No.
So just an all-time NFL blooper. And I
saw your tweet because I was off Twitter for the last 24 hours, and then I opened it up today and saw you'd posted about it. Now, did the coach say anything post game?
I guess he apologized on Twitter like immediately after the guy. I don't know. I'm not following up like Bears post game reports. I've watched the clip 100 times. Like, and then at one point he just does this one like, nah, we good. And the ball hits his hands. No. It's like, it's just so beautiful. So beautiful.
Well, I think that's also a nice way to bring up, we're talking football and basketball. 31st ever sports Equinox is happening. We're recording on Monday, but that's going to happen tonight. I forget who's playing the Steelers. I think it's actually the Giants playing the Steelers, and then the Dodgers Yankees. Like that's awesome. Like that Freeman story of him hitting Jackson back-to-back games. I didn't realize that both of his parents are Canadian. His mother, who unfortunately passed away, I think she was born or raised in Peterborough, Ontario. So he actually represents Canada when he plays internationally to, obviously represent his family and where they're from. So just a fascinating story. And what was it? The first ever walk-off Grand Slam.
Ever Grand Slam walk-off in World Series history.
Incredible.
I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it. And it was, I watched that game because I was over a buddy's place. There's this thing. You want to hear the dumbest thing that I've ever heard of an elementary school doing was Friday night. This is around where my son goes to school. There's a little pond. Like, I'm going to say if to walk around the pond is 0.75 miles, 3/4 of a mile. Oh, 3/8, baby. Let's get back to that 3/8, baby. So 3/4 of a mile. So the week before Halloween on Friday, you meet at the playground. There's a DJ, there's pizza. The whole school's there. And I believe it includes another school because there's so many people. And then they decide, all right, let's walk around the lake, the water of Body, very safe for kids.
Just to set the scene, like how many soccer moms we talking here around?
I'm talking there's 400 to 500 kids like running around the playground and the field. But then let's walk around the pond. But let's not do it right at 5:15 when the whole shebang starts. Let's wait till it's pitch black. So we're gonna do that. So just the dumbest, I'm like, we're walking around a body of water with kindergarten to 5th graders, and there's no parents around. Hilarious, ridiculous move. But I long-winded. I'm over at my buddy's house, and this all leads back to the World Series. Jesus wit. So we're at my buddy's house, and my buddy goes, just put in the bet on the Yanks. I love the Yanks tonight on the road, getting money or plus 120 or something like that. And then my other buddy sitting down and goes, buddy, 2 seconds ago, I pressed the Dodgers. So they're immediately going against each other. So now I'm invested. Now I have no money left because Murl's game of the year in the Swedish league lost this past week. He's been very hot. I believe his game notes pick for Saturday were undefeated, but he screwed me over. So I had no money, so I couldn't bet. That game. I mean, Giancarlo Stanton hits this bomb. Yankees are looking great. All of a sudden, it's tied up. And then, the way it ended with a grand slam in game 1 of the World Series. Dodgers-Yankees is very cool, too. Some people probably hate the fact that it's these two super mega paying star teams.
It's what baseball needed.
Exactly.
I feel like baseball was a little bit, ever since they implemented the shot clock or the pitch clock, and then now you get this. I haven't been invested in baseball in a long time. I care what's happening in this World Series, and just the O'Shaughnessy factor and the fact that he's a gambling addict. O'Shaughnessy.
Ashanti? Are you thinking of Ashanti and Shohei Ohtani?
Shohei Ohtani. I struggle with the Japanese names.
That's okay.
She had some bangers, though.
That's a new one.
She had some bangers, man.
Oh my God. Jeez. Rest in peace.
But I think that summarizes the sports Equinox very well. We kind of touched every sport. We touched football, baseball, basketball, and now before
hockey,
we get on to hockey, golf, sandbagger.
Oh, dude. For anyone who hasn't watched yet, I don't really want to give it away, but I think we have to at this point. I mean, who cares,
right?
We got sandbagged. But beyond sandbagging is one thing. To sandbag the way Rob Schremp did, to do us that, and sometimes you tip your cap because after he told us, he's laughing. By the way, when you watch the video, he's winking after he's hitting par 5s and 2. He knew the whole time, but he's like, yeah, I got you guys. I got you.
That's what the London Knights do, Whit.
Exactly.
They fucking sandbagged the whole OHL. We got sandbagged at Red Tail. Now, there was a lot of first. The first time we've ever been sandbagged, probably the first time we've played a course that nice, like a private course. People were telling me that Sean Connery's passed away, correct?
Yes. I think it's probably good for him that he's passed away by now, too. He had some tough clips back in the day talking about domestic violence. But go ahead.
Yeah, those we won't get into that. But no, we just took a bit of a right turn. But apparently his favorite course where he would just fly in, bring the chopper in and play there and then take off. So the exclusivity of this course and the fact they even let us on the track. Now, I had a putter toss. I was so frustrated with these goddamn greens on top of the pin placements, in which I've had a few members reach out since watching the video saying not only were the greens tough, they hosed you guys with the pin placements.
I said it to the guy walking off one of them. Walking off the second hole, I said it to him.
Yeah, they're going to catch me at a near point in the future doing donuts on these greens. That's how frustrated I am. And there's no way they're ever going to let me back given this putter toss. But talking about the sandbagger and the story specifically, one of my favorite ones, it was a blast hanging out with Prusty and Schremp. Probably the most surprising story was the fact that Hunter put Brendan Pruss to shadow Sidney Crosby in the Memorial Cup. No, Brandon.
Yeah.
Brendan
O'Shaughnessy.
Brandon O'Shaughnessy. The fact that he had him shadowed Crosby the whole game with Prusty was unbelievable. I couldn't believe my fucking ears when he told me that story.
Yeah, I love that. Prusty's a funny bastard. Like, I kind of forgot when I said the one hole. I'm like, right before he had a big shot, I'm like, chirp him, Biz. And so sure as shit, like, great job on the editing, Pasha. The video was awesome. And then you chirp his barrel. And then he's like, talking about my cock, like, very quick. Like, right off. It was just classic here. And then the Aginla story he told us. So for anyone who hasn't checked it out, we got owned. I think it ended up being that we lost 6 straight holes to lose 5 and 4. So we were in the middle of the match, and then like my dad's all over me. He's like, "You took his shot away because you were so bad." I'm like, "Yeah, I took his shot away." Like, it was the guy had no business getting any shots. I should have been getting shots. I took his shot away, and I still hit it in the woods. What really sucked for me, and I just want to apologize again, was you were unreal in that bagger, dude. Like, your irons, one time we were 175, and usually that's like, I'm hitting 4. You hit a 7 pin high. I'm like, I am wasting a generational performance by Biz. And so I'll try to get you back.
I feel like I wasted it myself by 3 and 4 putting everything. That's how I felt about it. But if you haven't checked it out, go on our Spittin Chiclets YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Up to 355,000 subscribers now, Witty Dog, giving you the update. And why don't we bring on one of the most talented members of our team, Pasha, to talk about not only the edit, but maybe a few other things that are going around the league.
I got something else I want to ask him about. Okay. Pasha, talk about the sandbagger and how you think it went first.
Fellas. I thought it was a great sandbagger, like you mentioned. It was one of my favorites, old school hockey guys telling good stories. And it's fun. I believe if you count the 2 scrambles, that was our 25th one we've done. And, I love them. They're just such fun productions. You guys make my job easy with how silly you are. So, it makes the editing process easy. But yeah, if you have, like you guys said, you haven't checked it out, go watch, because I think it's a really good one.
I was going to say, the fact that he's able to put together these masterpieces are probably the only reason our fans still somewhat like him. But the reason I love getting him on the podcast, and then when we cut these clips, is just reading all the comments, is get this fucking guy off the podcast. And it just...
Yeah, well, no, if you click those profiles, they all say NYC or Connecticut, or it's all these Rangers fans that are rattled.
Well, Pasha, I do want to say, from the first sandbagger to where it's at now in 25, I mean, you're improving at an amazing, like you're getting better and better, and you were good to begin with. So that's the good news, and great job. Worth every penny we pay your stupid ass. Bad news. Jack Hughes, I'm going to say posterized a little bit. And now the Devils got off to a flying start, and then they're giving up loads of goals to the Capitals and the Lightning. They really figured things out Sunday night. But in Detroit, Rasmussen decides to wrap a goal around to into the empty net. Let's seal this thing. And Hughes makes a great attempt as a leader to go back and try to finish his hit and stop this goal from going in. Well, he runs into a fucking train. And then not only does he get bodied right in front of the net, Rasmussen stands over him and flexes. And I texted the group chat within 2 seconds, Biz. I said, Pasha, what is this? Where is your team? Where is the fire? Do you think if Patrick Kane got ran over and stood over like that in the Blackhawks days, somebody wouldn't have jumped him? So I'd love to hear your response.
Jack Hughes had to get up and do something.
He got up and was most angry.
Maybe it's time to hit the gym a little bit more. I know he likes to skate a lot, but maybe it's time to put a little bit more muscle on, just like you're skinny.
Rasmussen is twice his size. In Biz's words, this is the biggest nothing burger story ever. Like, Jack is making a hard play back for the puck. If he didn't, he'd get chirped for why didn't he go and try and save it. Runs into a guy twice his size, obviously gets knocked over. And then Rasmussen, he's all hyped up because he got his first point of the year, stands over him. Like, let him enjoy his 15 minutes of fame. I had to Google him to even figure out who he was. Is he a forward? Is he a D?
Here we go. He just signed an extension last year. He just signed an extension last year.
This is the biggest nothing burger story ever. Okay, like he ran over a guy half his size. He fell over. Sweet. Like, why are we talking about it?
You don't care about the lack of...
The answer, I told you in the group chat this morning. All the Devils jumped in. The refs pulled him away. It's 10 seconds left in the game. And then they didn't put him out or any of the Detroit Stars out the rest of the game. And I guaranteed you, next time these two teams play, November 29th, I guarantee you Curtis McDermott fights Rasmussen.
What about the Trouba train leaving the station again, your boy? He's been playing well. What do you make of the Trouba?
Great. He's playing great. And Pasha, I
He's not
really
play-
am
he's not
interested in
playing great.
your take on this hit. He's playing solid, dude.
He's playing okay. Like he racked up a few points in the first few games, but
He's not paid to get points.
From what I understand, last night you texted me asking questions. You are now trying to figure out under the hood metrics. And if you look at his under the hood metrics, they are still not good. But going back to that hit, clean hit.
Oh.
I love big hits. I love fighting in the game. That was never my beef with him. We don't need to, beat a dead horse, but clean hit. The guy put himself in a vulnerable position, head down, no awareness. I had no problem with the hit. So it was for once wasn't a dirty hit from Trouba.
Wow, Pasha's kind of pulled his head out of his ass, and Rangers fans might take a liking to you at that. You said that. Now, we're going to let you leave, but before we do, we got to ask you one more thing about the Rangers, and you could be nice in your approach to this one. Pretty big bargoon contract for Lafreniere.
Yeah, exactly. More reasons to, butter up the Rangers fans. Hell of a player, hell of a deal. I love that deal for the team. This guy is a rising superstar. I love his game. And the fact they got him for 7.45, hell of a deal. He took a team-friendly deal. And then you know what? The money you saved on that, give it to Igor, give him 17, maybe even 18.
I think it's about time to say goodbye to Pasha.
Take a hike, Pasha. I just wanted to talk about the sandbagger for a second.
Beat it.
Also, this week, before we get back quickly into the hockey, Chiclets U at Chiclets University at Army's dropping, which the way he described to us, I'm very excited to watch. Sounds like it's funny, gets emotional, just very impressive what those guys do at West Point for Army hockey. And he was at Michigan at Yost. What is it? The Kids of Yost? Is that the?
Why don't we get them on? Jump on, G.
The children of Yost is what they call them. Crazy fan section. Yeah, we were at Michigan this past week, and it was pretty cool. Got to go to the big house. First college football game, Michigan versus Michigan State. We were down on the field, hit Yost Arena, traditional Unreal barn. Got to chat with Red Berenson, which is legendary Michigan coach. First guy to wear a helmet in the NHL. So it was an Unreal video. That's coming out in a couple weeks, but we do have, like you just said, we have Army coming out this week. Very emotional video. I'd say moving is the right word. Hit the Trail of the Fallen at the end of the video. But yeah, that'll drop Wednesday around noon.
What's the Trail of the Fallen?
So Trail of the Fallen is unbelievable. So the whole video all day, everyone keeps saying, you got to hit the Trail of the Fallen. You got to hit the Trail of the Fallen. So at the end of the day, we did this 2-mile hike, and it was like I believe 2.5 mile hike up. It's a really directly up up. Like you're basically climbing a rope up this, during this hike. It's really steep. And when you get to the top, it is the most scenic view you've ever seen. And there is a American flag at the very top of this mountain. And all under the flag are these rocks. And on each rock is you're supposed to carry a rock up the mountain when you do the trip. If you know someone who has fallen in the line of battle, and you write their name on the rock, and if you have their dog tag still or something along those lines, you put that there. So it's really moving to be up there to see, someone's name, Vietnam War, with their dog tags hanging on there. And, all these different rocks and all these different stories of all these different people who served our country, who made the ultimate sacrifice, which it's, and then the coach just right when we're up there, it's sun setting, and Coach Brian Riley, it's his final season, 21 years, just gave out of nowhere, gives the most emotional, inspirational.
And this was filmed?
We filmed it all. Yeah. It was incredible.
This will be all dropping on the Chiclets YouTube channel. That's awesome.
It was unbelievable. So yeah, Wednesday around noon, that's dropping. And Army, those guys are a different breed. So it'll be a fun video.
People are loving these Chiclets U videos. So great job, G. Glad you had a great weekend at the University of Michigan. I'm sure they handled you a nice duffel bag to promote their university and getting all the top recruits. And let's keep her moving, baby. Keep moving the chains.
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff to get to, but you did bring up quick to Pasha the extension for Alexis Lafreniere. I love it. I was shocked at the responses I got on Twitter. I said, what a deal. I don't exactly remember my tweet word for word, but then there was a ton of, what do you mean this is a good deal? Look at the points. He had 57 points.
For fuck's sake. Yeah, he hasn't hit the 60-point mark. Shut the fuck up.
How dumb are certain people on the internet? I mean, what a ridiculous question. Everyone knows the answer. But it's just, I said, this deal is insane. What a bargain. Chris Drury doing God's work for the New York Rangers. And a bunch of responses come in where I have to write, how dumb are some of these replies? When the cap is over $100 million in 4 years, this guy will be getting 75 to 90 points while making 7.45. Wake up. I think that this deal is exactly what the Rangers needed. Like, the Rangers are looking like this is an enormous win for us. You've seen what this kid has done, and I was hard on him at the beginning. Biz, do you know who his trainer is back home?
No.
Do you remember?
I was going to try to.
You remember Steph Dubé from when we were in Pittsburgh?
Oh, back in Wilkes-Barre. Yeah,
yes.
I think he was good boys with Talbot and obviously with Terrian as well. Terrian loved him.
Oh yeah, and brought him and Nazardine. They're very close as well. So I didn't know that, but that's his trainer. And 2 years ago, after they had lost in 7 to the Devils, he had no points in the playoffs. And like reading about this a little bit, he starts training. I think it was 10 days after they lost, and just Dubé's talking about it and saying this. It just something clicked, something changed. He was so pissed off and so angry at how poor he had played in the playoffs, how he hadn't popped off yet. He then goes back last year. It's his third coach in 4 seasons, right? So because he came in with David Quinn, then Gerard Gallant was there. Well, Laviolette's there. Philip Hedl goes down. They put him with Panarin and Trocheck. They've turned into a dominant line. Last season, they played more minutes and scored more 5-on-5 goals than any other line in the league. I think after what he's proven and how he keeps getting better and every year is more points, this year it's 8 points in 8 games. He doesn't play power play.
That's the key right there.
These are regular.
People don't realize how hard it is to score 5-on-5 in today's NHL. And I couldn't agree with you more. Everybody was messaging me after I said it was a bargoon. Like, guy hasn't even hit the 60-point mark. The biggest thing for me is like, maybe he wasn't producing, especially early on, but he learned like the fundamentals of the game where he's a responsible player. Like, he's nowhere near a liability out there. So if you're getting 30 and 30 every year and you're paying a guy 7.5 who's not playing power play and he's getting that many points, that's a fucking bargoon contract. And if you've watched any Rangers games over the last half of a year, going back to last year, when obviously last year things started really clicking for him and he gained that confidence, and even into this year where I know he's playing with some pretty high talented players, but you watch certain shifts where he's the one driving the line. He's the one making the big play to separate the guy from the puck, to get it back and to keep it alive in the offensive zone. Like, going back to the other night, like sometimes Sean Avery does great breakdowns on his Instagram.
Yeah, he does.
And he does. I like watching him, right? Because he's bang on and he
does it for
game.
Tampa. He does them a lot for Tampa, the Rangers, and Toronto, I think. Oh no, yeah, he's Tampa Rangers.
Yeah, and he was doing it for the Rangers the other night, and he did a great breakdown of how Lafreniere, he separated the guy from the puck. Then he was the F3 up top, keeps the play in the zone, moves it down low, takes a hit, and then he's the guy to go to the net, score a goal on a give and go. So he is just firing on all cylinders, and I don't necessarily, when guys play the way that he does, care if they get 90 or 100 points. He is a very well-rounded player, and this is going to be a bargoon contract, like you said, in 3-4 years. I even think it's fair market value right now, if not a little bit of a bargain. And great job for him. Like you said, sometimes like players, when they have that type of off season and year, or not when I mean off season, postseason, and they struggle, maybe they go poopy pants and they don't go work harder in the gym, and it's everybody else's problem and their fault. Oh, I'm not playing with the right guys and I'm not in the right situation. He took it upon himself to go and dig in the off season to have that the ability to come back and have a bounce back year like he did last year. He's earned everything he got. And it's very hard when you're the first overall pick to overcome those demons. And we actually have a story later on about the Dylan McElrath, the guy who was drafted 10th overall in the first round. That's a very fun story, but we're going to save that for later. And you almost hope to see the same thing for Shane Wright as well, who was supposed to be the first overall pick, who ended up going 4th overall, and he spent time in the minors. So it's not always going to click right away for these guys, and you got to give them a little bit of time to season. And this is a guy where it's finally clicking, and I couldn't be happier for Rangers fans. There, I said it.
All right.
I said it.
All right. Well, there's also some news with the Islanders going around a little bit, but I guess the final thing is he was drafted. He didn't play for like nearly a year because it was COVID. Then he came in the league in the bubble, and you've seen him take off. I'm easily ready and willing to eat my words that this guy didn't really have what I thought a future star would have. He's looked phenomenal.
If we're talking teams off to a hot start here at the beginning of the podcast, I think if we're talking Rangers, like I know we talked about Igor rejecting that contract extension. The longer he keeps playing this way, the more the dollar's going up. Right now, I think he's got a 2 point. What's his goals against average right now this season? 2.4, maybe even a little bit lower. I think he's got a 940 save percentage over 6 games. So I don't think that the $12.5, $13 million mark is out of this world. And I know people think I'm crazy because maybe he's only going to play 60, 65 regular season games, but there's no way that the Rangers are lifting a Stanley Cup if it's not for Igor. And his play has proved that so far this season, just like the last.
And
what are his numbers?
He right here, he is 916, 926 save percentage, 2.16 goals against.
There you go. And
he's got a shutout. And it's kind of funny that he's actually doing the exact opposite of what Lafreniere is doing, because granted, he's UFA. It's different in that sense, but he's like, I'm going to prove and up my worth game by game. Where Lafreniere could have easily done that. I mean, if he thinks that he has reached a different level, he's point per game right now, like, what if I go get 75 points this year? But it was more like, I like the security. I like where I'm at. I want to do it. Igor's not looking at it like that. He wants to break the mold. And he actually has already been offered the largest contract in goaltending history. And he's like, no. Niet. I show you more. So it's been incredible to see what they've done. I was an idiot about them, kind of. I think in the season previews, I maybe was looking at like, who do I think can win the Stanley Cup? And I didn't think of them. And then now I'm back to thinking like they could if Igor got that hot. Now, Pasha's probably losing it, and Rangers haters are probably like, they can't get by the big dogs in the East. They can't beat the Panthers. But we'll see, because you know they're going to be there right in the end. And they are the regular season champions, of course. Don't forget their banner.
That's true.
Don't forget their banner.
True.
What else? Oh, Winnipeg. Oh, mea culpa, baby. I think I just got to keep saying mea culpa every episode until they lose. I was wrong. I was wrong last year. I'm wrong this year. Your team is a wagon. I believe that they've now won 16 regular season games in a row over the course of 2 seasons. They finished with 8 last year. Then they got rocked in 5 games by the Avs. But then now they got 8 in a row this regular season. The record is the Penguins, 17 in like 92, 93 of across 2 seasons, winning games in a row. So maybe they tie that. What do you see? Do you think it'll continue? I will say the power play is around 40, 45%. So you know that's going to level off.
I mean, yeah, it'll level off a little bit, but we've also said that about the Oilers sometimes in the past where they were clicking at that high of a rate and they kept doing it. Don't compare
those 2 teams. You don't want to do that.
Buddy, I'll tell you right now, I like their top 9 way better than I like the Oilers' top 9. I think they have so much skill distributed on their top 9. You're crazy. And I think they have the best third line in hockey going right now.
I agree with
the chemistry.
I agree with that.
Nino Niederreiter, that's trade's looking like a steal. Appleton, and then of course Lowry, who if he keeps playing like this, buddy, he's a shoo-in for that 4 Nations tournament. You'd be so stupid to not even have him as a 4th line center.
Hold on, him or Tom Wilson?
I think you have them both.
They're both not making the team. I don't think.
What do you mean they're both not making it? You could have one guy as an extra. Like,
okay.
like
well, that's
Tom Wilson could be an extra to start the tournament, man. And given the fact that the U.S. team, especially up front, they got some disruptors there. You're going to need some guys pushing back. Even on the back end, they got some guys who are physical. They got McAvoy. You got to disrupt that back end for Team USA. So I think that if I'm looking at it, you always don't want to go too one-dimensional with skill out the wazoo. You need some guys who are going to, be a thorn in those guys' sides. Now, going back to Winnipeg, I mean, we touched on them last week, man. They're getting incredible goaltending right now. They got that good 1-2 punch on the back end with Pionk, who's played incredible so far this year. You always know what you're going to get from Morrissey, but I think it just comes back to Arniel and their team overall. I think that early in the season, sometimes some teams get a little bit sloppy with their coverage and their D zone and not playing in structure. I think that they took that momentum they'd gained last year over the course of the regular season and they brought it right in to start this year. And they don't give up as much as other teams do. They know how to score in different ways. I think it was Army last year who touched on how good they are off the offensive zone cycle and how they can generate offense there. You're talking about their power play. Well, I mean, you talk about one-dimensional. You can't be one-dimensional just scoring there. So they found a way to incorporate their whole lineup as far as providing offense. They're getting it from the back end. They're getting Vezina caliber goaltending. And it just seems like the culture has kept going the way that it was established with Arniel taking over as head coach. So I like him, man. That's the biggest mea culpa going right now as far as teams that I had missing the playoffs. But I do think that they play tonight. It will be their 9th game. So by the time this podcast comes out, they might have suffered their first loss. But to start the season 8-0 after whatever happened in playoffs last year, it's just kudos to them and the leadership that group has. Now, I think that we actually have Rick Bonus coming on TNT this week. So he'll probably touch on what it was like coaching there and the group. And he says, we made it very clear to those guys, if you don't want to play here and you don't like being in Winnipeg, let us know. We'll get you the fuck out of here. And everybody who's playing there is bought into playing in Winnipeg. And listen, it ain't for everybody. It would, in some guys' cases, be a very difficult place to play. It's cold. It's dreary. The dog days of the season could be extra extended.
Chris Drury?
Is it Drury? Is that how you say it?
I think it's dreary.
Dreary?
Yeah.
Well, I'm French fucking Canadian. Would you give me a goddamn break here?
Well, O'Shanti Drury.
O'Shanti Drury, baby. Hooked
Drury
on
did
phonics
play in the Little League World Series.
Hooked on phonics didn't work for me, but overall, very impressive from the Jets so far this season, Woody. What do you got on them?
So
I guess Nikolai Ehlers is the only guy who I guess they're trying to sign him to an extension, but he's like, no, I'm going to wait till after the year. So he might be the only guy that maybe doesn't enjoy playing there as much as the other guys, or he's like Igor and he's waiting for his payday.
Ehlers is a water bug out there. He's got 10 points in 8 games. Yes. Oh, they're playing Toronto this evening, and I want to let everyone know there's 8 games tonight, which is not common for a Monday. Usually it's a pretty, I feel like, slow night in the NHL. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays being the big dogs. If anything happens in any of these games, we'll be hopping back on. I'll be getting back on here later. So obviously we're through Sunday, but in terms of the Jets, this article, and it's written by Murat Ates, A-T-E-S. I'm so bad with names. I butchered it for sure, but it's good. It's on The Athletic, and it's talking about Scott Arniel and his analytics summit and his aim to evaluate. I'm chirping you.
Yeah. You want to fucking come at me, you piece of shit?
That was like the guy talking shit and then the ball going off his fingertips. Karma,
motherfucker.
Inside Scott Arniel's analytics summit and his aim to elevate unbeaten Winnipeg Jets. So it goes into this, that he had this entire group summit this summer talking about analytics, and it stems from last year. The Avalanche had dismantled the Jets in the first round of the playoffs, and Colorado's head coach Jared Bednar was loud and proud about his team's analytical advantages. Bednar said Colorado changed its forecheck as a direct response to its preparation for the series. So Colorado used analytics so to perfection against them last year, and Arniel was like, we need to get better at this. We need to use this better, and we need to simplify it, where they went in all confused about it. The article goes into way better explanation of what they did, but it's interesting. Pasha's probably got the Jergens and the Kleenex out right now. We're talking about
he loves his analytics,
being all analytical,
numbers.
But talking about like figuring out what's a slot shot, what isn't, to really dial in their entire game and who they play against and how other teams play. I thought that was interesting, like to see that they're starting this strong. And Arniel also mentioned that he kind of thought he had to do it all in Columbus. That's where Calmy's been rough on Scott Arniel before. I think he was a little bit on the on that.
Yeah, people can learn and grow and evolve.
That's what he says. He says he tried to do everything and he had to be a part of everything. He talks now about trusting his assistants way more, which makes sense to me. Like your stress level trying to control everything would kill you. Like you got to have belief in the guys you hire. And it seems like they really do have something brewing there. Now, can the playoffs be different? Because Winnipeg Jets fans, they're successful in the regular season. It's playoffs. It's sun. See ya. Kapoof. And now let's see if it can be different. But Hellebuck's unreal. Hellebuck, I guess, starting goalie for Team USA. It's not a stretch, but that's a tough competition. You're talking about Team Canada and Wilson and Lowry. Goaltending in Team USA is crazy. You got Hellebuck, Ottinger. There are so many different options for that team. Whereas Canada, who's Canada's starter, Biz? Who's your starter?
I'd go crazy Binnington.
Okay.
I'd give him a bag and say, go out there and do your thing, brother. That's what I'd do. I would I trust. He's away. He loves it. When the competition is at its highest, that's when Binnington shows up.
And the Blues are good, buddy.
They compete hard. They compete hard. And obviously Robert Thomas going down is not ideal. I think he's got like a fractured ankle or something. Hopefully it's not too long. But yeah, man, that's a great double wrister for the Jets and a team that we probably don't talk enough about. And maybe we can get maybe we can get Kyle fucking Connor, the Electric Factory, back on and talk about how the season's gone so far. But I mean, we'd be hard pressed not to mention Scheifele as well, who's been off to a great start. So a lot to prove for that Jets team. I also, going back to your comment about the forecheck, I also thought that they got roasted off of the rush. I thought when Colorado's D were joining the rush, they were giving up the line easy and they were getting so many scoring chances off the rush.
So they said in this same article that they started the series off putting it in deep because they said they thought of Winnipeg as having like defensemen that were a little bit on the slower side, which I could agree with. So they got it in deep and they got them backing up, and then they took over the possession and the offensive line. So they just worked them back and then got all the room they needed.
Yeah, that second layer coming in, most of the time it's a defenseman activating. Like, go back and watch the goals from last year's first round. I bet you they get, throughout the whole series, probably 6-7 goals off the rush in a 5-game series. They just opened up the floodgates on them. So, but that ain't this year. No more fraud squad as of right now, unless our guy behind the scenes has to say anything about it.
No,
maybe we'll get a text after
squad.
This pod comes out.
No more fraud squad. But I guess I'm talking about history with the winning streak throughout 2 seasons, kind of a joke when you get trucked in the playoffs. But we also are looking at history in another way, Biz, and that's in a bad way. And that's the San Jose Sharks, who I believe are trying to become the first team to start an NHL season with 9 consecutive losses 2 years in a row.
Hey, man, if you're going to do it, go big. Go
okay,
big
well, this is that leads us into the Flames, and we'll get into that. Like, I know what you're saying. But when you hear about Craig Conroy and the Flames talk about like them not wanting to be a part of that, there is an argument to when it gets that bad with young guys, it crushes you, dude. It really, and if you don't have a strong core of veterans, which I'm not talking about their veterans specifically at all, like that wears on guys, that can change development, and you just hope that they get it turned around a little. It sucks. Celebrini goes down like that. They had the excitement. They had a 3-goal lead in the first game of the year against the Blues and blew it. No pun intended. So now it's like they got to get off. They got to get a win because
I think that if you're a fan of the Sharks and you're in that organization, you want to make it as miserable as possible for 2, maybe 3 years. And I get I get what you're saying, buddy. Like, you look at Chicago, and I like the moves that they made this offseason to surround Berdara with competent players, learn how to win, some championship pedigree in there, bring in more veterans that he can snap it around with so the power play could be overall better. And you're not dealing with like a 15-20 win season, but buddy, make it quick, make it extremely painful. Get those first and second overall picks, because those are the players that are going to change the foundation of your organization. That's what's going to do it. Smith,
I know.
You got Celebrini, and maybe add in one more special player. Like, I forget the kid's name. The kid playing at BC.
Higgins.
Dude, there was a fucking clip that came out of this kid. I thought it was AI generated.
I sent it to you.
It was that Jack Eichel playing in his gear. It looked like it was Jack Eichel.
But was there some sort of editing where his head is that still?
He was looking at the banners and the rafters while controlling the puck the whole fucking shift. So if I'm the San Jose Sharks, I'd be putting pucks in my own net in order to get this guy. So as much as we want to be critical and as much as it's miserable for Sharks fans, just be dog shit for one more year. Get this kid, and I think your guys' future is going to be so bright. So keep doing what you're doing. Fuck off with this limbo nonsense and tank at the Shark Tank, baby.
You can tank and not get 47 points. Like
I wouldn't
60,
win a
65 points. You're tanking, bro. You're horrible.
If that
47
clip-
last year.
If that clip was not AI generated, I would try to lose all 82 games. I'd
What
be
if you don't
benching
get
my
it?
best. What?
It doesn't guarantee you get it. And then you're stuck with some bust that's just tanking in the tank. He's drinking in the tank. He looks like a dead shark in the tank by the end of his career because he won 9 games a season for 4 years. It gets exhausting. You got to be not 47
That's
point
when
bad.
you just got to trust the process and you got to trust Bettman and the fact that he pulls out that magic ball. But you did mention the Flames. Do you want to move off to them or you want to keep talking about the tanking?
No, the tank at the tank. That's going to be an interesting follow this season. And everyone knows they'll probably be last. I just think you hope for some of these guys. You get a little bit of a run. You win 7 of 10 at one point throughout the year. Just something to build on and gravitate towards as you're looking to the next season. And remember how we played some good hockey at that one stretch. Not just business tanking at the tank. Saturday night, $10. Come watch the Sharks tank at the tank, and then they just lose 10-0.
Make sure
the whole crowd's
Celebrini
cheering.
gets his 1-1. Make sure the other guy gets his 1-1 and just lose every goddamn game. Now, shifting over to Calgary, here's what I'm feeling from Calgary. I'm feeling that like they're this year's Philadelphia Flyers. I feel like they're going to Oh, when did you say that?
I believe I said it last episode, if not 2 episodes ago. Or it was on the group chat, so I feel bad right now interrupting you.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to hand it off to you. I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, you take it.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
You're not. I don't know why.
Sure?
My ego got in the way there. And there probably isn't even evidence of me saying it on the pod. I know I thought it, though. So I'm more giving you a tap on the back. Good job.
All right, Ray. But speaking of young talent, been very pleased with that Zari kid. Like, I love the way that he controls the puck. He's got good offensive ability. But I think the story right now is Rasmus Andersson leading their team in points. He's got 10 points in 8 games right now. And every time he's scoring, he's doing stare downs with fans in the crowd. Have you been seeing this?
Yes. It's a great celebration.
What do you make of it?
I think it's amazing. And it's only if a fan nearby has the opposing or that team's jersey on. Correct?
I think he did it to the Pittsburgh Penguin guy. And then all of a sudden there was maybe a little battle going on the rest of that game where they ended up coming back and beating him in a shootout. But hey, it's a great story to start the year. They're the kings of Alberta right now, other than obviously because your Oilers are dog shit.
How are they dog shit, Biz?
What?
How are they dog shit?
Well, just compared to what we're expecting out of them. I mean, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they're not exactly that hot coming out of the gate to the point where they're not even the best team in Alberta. They're not even the best team in Alberta.
You actually have serious like mental problems. If you're thinking that the Edmonton Oilers right now aren't turning a little bit of a corner and looking a lot better, you're crazy. You're crazy.
But
yeah, they're not 10-0. I mean, okay, like it's a long season. Build toward the playoffs. Look at last year and what happened. They're figuring it out. They look good. Leon, 2 goals and an assist on his birthday. They win in Detroit in overtime. Like things are happening. Work the Penguins. Go ahead back to Calgary, Biz. Don't bring my Oilers into the mix. Your Leafs have plenty to worry about.
Yeah, they do. Okay, we won't go there yet. But as far as Rasmus Andersson, I mean, probably could potentially be a nice deadline pickup for somebody. I don't know what the future is in Calgary. Why are you laughing?
Because nobody needs him more than the Edmonton Oilers.
You think that he might go there down the road?
I don't know if that will ever get done. If Craig Conroy would ever end up agreeing with Stan Bowman and like helping out.
I thought that was a faux pas to make.
Yeah, it's happened before, I think. Grinnell, will you look it up, please? It definitely has, but Rasmus Andersson, I only laugh because he's exactly what the Oilers need at right D, like to a T. So if it could ever happen, I think his cap hits 4.4 for the next.
It's very cheap.
It's crazy.
It's very cheap. It's cheap for what he's doing right now. And he's got a certain edge to his game, not a liability defensively at all. And the fact that he can do this offensively, I don't know if he's going to sustain this, although I think his career high is 50 points. So it's not like he's not accustomed to putting up decent numbers, but I think that overall he's probably been the catalyst to their team right now. Very happy for Huberdeau and what he's doing after, you have the year last year that he had, and then you see your old team go off and win a Stanley Cup, and then he's doing what he's doing. Kadri has been off the start. Another guy who maybe they could part ways with if a team's willing to offer a big enough return at the deadline. I think he could help so many teams up immensely. I would love to see him back in Toronto. Don't think that's going to happen the way things left. I think that the other story too is the 1A, 1B. That's my favorite saying when it comes to the net miners with Vladar and Wolf. And, you know, I don't think Calgary has a ton in the pipeline that is a proven prospect. We mentioned Zari, but this Wolf guy, he went down to the American League. I think he was goalie of the year back-to-back years in the AHL. And then so far, his numbers so far in his 4 games that he's played and shared the net with Vladar, he looks fucking awesome. So things are definitely looking in the right direction for Calgary. But like you said, last pod or on the group text, I think that there's going to be or in your own brain, Ashanti. I think that at some point they are going to fall off a cliff and they're going to have to do what they need to do in order to prep for the future. But it's got to be fun being a fan there, getting off to this unexpected start and being the Kings of Alberta.
So do you believe that those fans, because I've seen rumblings that the fans are actually like, no, stop winning. There has to be a fan base at least divided, or if not more so, wanting them to win, but some of them being like you and say, no, get better odds for first overall.
My understanding is the moves that they've made over the last couple of years, especially last year, were incredible in preparation for the future. I think having those like the Anderson around and Kadri around to rub off on some of these other young players they do have on the team and make things a little bit less painful for the fan base and around the city. I think it's perfect what they're doing now at the early part of the season, but I think that you have to look towards the future. And if there's a big enough return, which I think that there will be for some of these pieces they do have, especially given Rasmus Anderson's cap hit, I think you have to look towards the future. Like that building up their value to get good assets in return is just as important as what they end up doing at the draft and these draft picks that they accumulate. So
you got to get a lot for them then.
You're going to get a lot. So I think that they're in a good spot now. And man, there's nothing better than starting out the season hot when you had no expectations. The mojo and the feeling around the rink. Like, have you seen clips of the bench, like Huberdeau smiling again?
He looks like, so happy.
When's the last time we've seen that?
I know.
The guy could probably go to Tim Hortons and not get mobbed about the fucking power play, for Christ's sake.
The Justin Kirkland story too is so cool.
It's awesome.
It's just like 10 years later, we talked about it already. The serious injury he had from, was it a car accident? I believe Grinelli mentioned. It's like, this kid's getting his chance. The team's having success. I do agree with you though. In the end, they will. Remember I used to say in the end all the time.
And then memes gave
do
you
I still say that?
Memes gave you the Lincoln Park treatment.
Memes. Speaking of memes, just a disgusting tweet of you on the face of all these club goers and partiers in the 1980s. I'm going to knock him out
when I see him for posting that.
I almost like threw up. I was like, oh, this is bizarre. Just business everywhere. Women, men, he, she's, different hair, different mustache. I was like, oh, and memes has a sick mind to do that.
You've done worse.
So Calgary, good for them. Good for them. But yeah, we'll see where that ends up going. Are you feeling lucky? Well, get ready to try your luck with Jackpocket, America's #1 lottery app. With Jackpocket, you can order Powerball and Mega Millions tickets right on your phone. They even have official state lottery games. Every day, there are millions up for grabs right on your phone. New customers can get a free lottery ticket using code PUCK, P-U-C-K. That's code PUCK for a free Powerball or Mega Millions ticket. Don't wait. Download Jackpocket now for your chance to win big. Good luck. About, I don't know, September 15th-ish, started really talking NHL futures. Matt Murley said the Vegas Golden Knights are crushing everyone this year. And he has been repeating it over and over and over. And he looks like a genius right now. And he's really bullying us in the chat. Just after every box score at home, they put up 17 goals. Here you go, boys. Vegas still 18-1. I wonder if that's changed on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I think that getting that first round loss and actually rest was the biggest thing for this group. Yeah. They're healthy. Mark Stone leads the league in scoring, Biz. But I want to talk about the Shea Theodore extension, which this guy, what a find, what a deal. What was Anaheim thinking giving up on him? And I think there was more that went into it back at the time. And I don't know.
I think that they gave up Montour too at that time. It's like they didn't protect any of their good D. Like, what the fuck?
What were they doing?
I don't know.
What was going on? He's one of 3 original Vegas Golden Knights players that were there for the first year in the run to the Cup final. Do you know who the other 2 are? One's easy. I don't know if you'll get the third.
That are still there?
Yes, there's 3 of them.
I would guess McNabb.
Yes, that's the one I didn't think you'd get or wasn't sure you'd get.
And then Colasar wasn't there. Maybe Roy?
Nope.
Wait up. Oh, Carlson.
Wild Bill. Yeah, so you got all 3 pretty easy. So he's been, since he got there, just the smoothest skater, puts up points. I think defensively his numbers get like questioned a little bit, but the way he's actually moving the puck, getting it out of his zone, jumping into the play. Right now he's running the power play. That deal, while being 37 at the end of it, maybe at the end it hurts. Right now it's awesome. And it gives them Hanifin locked in at, I think, 7.5-ish. He's 7.4. And Petro's 8.8 for the next 6 years.
Petro's up after next year, correct? That'll be his last year at the end of next year. But the fact that you have this year and next year of those 2 guys, I think Petro's up at the end of the 25-26 season. But the fact that you're paying none of them more than $9 million and you're able to spread around to have a 1-2-3 punch on the back end like that, you'd have to say that they're probably at this point maybe the best D-core in the league, if not top 3. It's crazy. And then each of them takes the focus off of one another, where maybe Hanifin last year when he came in and even in playoff time, it seemed like he'd taken up that power play and maybe a little bit too much of that time away from Theodore, where I feel like each of them slotted in the perfect spot now. And I think the one other thing with it's like health, like he's been healthy over the last year and a half, and that's been important. I want to say in his last 82 games, he has 71 points, Shea Theodore. So
it's crazy.
His top end offensive ability is incredible as far as getting production from the back end. And you mentioned his defensive side. Well, he doesn't really need to be unreal there. He's not a very overly physical defenseman either, but another bargain contract for the Vegas Golden Knights, in which was conducted by Pinky in the Brain. I'll always go back to McPhee. Have you seen the clip that just went viral?
No.
Of McPhee snapping? Him and McCrimmon are there with the owner, Foley. And it's probably a first period turnover, and McPhee's fucking losing his mind, probably ready to try to... What's that?
From a recent game, like this past week?
I think this clip came out like 3 days ago. If G can send it over to you.
G, send it.
It's just the Pinky in the Brain aspect of these 2 and how they work, and how look at their top scorers right now. Outside of Shea Theodore, you got Eichel, Stone, Barbashev, Hurdle. You got, might as well throw Hanifin in the next, Pietrangelo. All these guys were acquired via big time trades. So this GM and president, they put their fucking nutsacks on the line, and they make very hard, difficult decisions. And boy, do they get it right every goddamn time, because Hurdle even looks like himself again after he didn't last year come playoff time. So they are just all systems go, baby.
Hurdle does look great. And Theodore has 296 points in 450 games on the Golden Knights. He's got 8 points in 8 years. And their power plays at 36%. Also, the final one that I wrote down was that they're paying the 5th most money to defensemen in the NHL in terms of like cap percentage. And it's only actually going to be more so next year when Theodore's deal kicks in. But I get that. Like, pay money to have a good defense, to have 3 legit guys that can move the puck and play PP, PK, like spread it out. I love that. And it's worked for them so far. And now, if Murls is correct, they're going to do it again this year.
I believe their philosophy is the back end and strength down the middle. And I think that that's kind of the formula in order to win now. And then those centermen can distribute to the puck to the guys in the wings. I mean, fucking Barbashev might be a point per game player this year. Guy's making $5 million. And he'll put you through the end wall.
Petro has 2 more years after this year.
Oh, I thought he was done 25, 26. Good for them. Holy shit.
He'll be 26, 27, and then he'll be 38 years old. You wonder, like, that's a long time from now, but he is doing it unreal for, what is it, 12, 13 years now?
He's a tank.
So the Wild, Biz, my squad kind of this year. I like watching these guys. I just such a Billy G fan that now in Kaprizov, I'm every episode, I'm going to keep talking about it. One of the most fun players to watch in the league. He's dominating when he's out there, but it's Gustafsson. It's their goalie. And he apparently was very close to getting traded last offseason or maybe the summer before that. I don't remember exactly. I got to check this out. Gee, look it up for me. Apparently, there was a very good chance he was going to be traded, and then now he looks phenomenal, and he scored a goal. I think the team's fun. I think that Zuccarello has always entertained me the way he flies around out there. Hartman's a rat. Like, Foligno's awesome. Foligno was chirping, Biz. You sent over some words he had, right? Who was that for?
I think it was Hathaway. He was saying, he's got to do stuff like that on the ice to stay relevant in this league. So he's getting a little bit spicy. That was a barn burner that they ended up losing against the Flyers. I think that's the Flyers' only win of the season. But I agree with you, Whit. They just kind of seem to have that mojo right now. Fleury, the perfect backup. Gustafsson is playing a lot more this year like he did 2 years ago when he had that incredible run and when he first ended up coming on the scene. Kaprizov is a human fucking highlight reel and can drive any fucking line. He could drive a line with me as his other line mates if there was 2 of me. But I haven't watched a ton of their game, but the fact that they're doing this and they had the absence of their captain
Spurgeon, he's still out.
He's still out. And the fact that they have the $14 million going against them on those buyouts, it's just remarkable. I think it just speaks to the culture they have going there and the mojo they have in the locker room. I haven't caught a lot of their games. I've been watching a few other teams instead, but I would have to rely on you for what you've seen from the rest of the group.
I haven't seen that much of them either, but the games I have watched, it's been good. I couldn't believe they lost to Philly like that. And the Philly... Michkov continues to produce points. He's actually like a piece of shit out there too.
Yeah,
I love it. He gets, so now it's like, oh man, I got a war with Flyers fans, but I actually like watching this guy play, even though I don't think he's the smoothest skater and I would never compare him to Kaprizov the way he glides through the ice, but I actually love his game and he's going to get a ton of points, but I hate the Flyers fans. So now I'm like all in on him as well because I've created this entire thing in my mind. So the Wild, though, I don't know if it can continue all year without Spurgeon. Like you need to. My friend in Minnesota said he almost shouldn't be captain. He's never playing. I mean, this is just one fan's opinion, but he's never in the lineup. I don't think that they'd ever think about something like that, but they do need him. They need him to actually get into the playoffs and make a run if they want any chance. And Boldy. Billy G, what do he say? He thinks he could be a 50-50 guy?
Yeah.
He looks great out of the gate. So it's a fun team to watch.
I think his pushback was just like more consistency, and that's going to come with over time and maturing as a player. And the fact that he's off to a hot start where he really struggled early on last year, I mean, that's huge for them. That's their up and coming superstar up front, along with Kaprizov. So the fact that they have both guys clicking on all cylinders, just huge for that lineup right now. So good mojo in Minnesota, that's for sure. Happy for those guys.
Biz. Dylan McElrath, did you see this guy firing up the team before the game last week?
That was the first game of a back-to-back where we ended up having them on the Wednesday broadcast. So Tuesday they went, I think the game was in Philadelphia in order to get the boys going. He had an incredible lineup read, and you could just tell that there's something brewing in Washington right now. I had them missing playoffs. I actually said they looked better on paper, but I didn't think, given the fact that New Jersey was going to be in, and then we would probably see a push from the Islanders and also the Penguins, that they would be the odd guys looking out. But right now, early on, these moves that Washington's made, along with McElrath being up and bringing that element to the team on the back end, and of course, it goes without saying, Carberry. I think it was Elliot Friedman on his podcast was just raving about him. And Carberry, I just feel like he's got that magic, man. He was a guy who he actually won a championship in the coast with the South Carolina Stingrays. Guess who his coach was?
Who?
Bednar.
No shit.
A lot of NHL coaches have gotten their start with the South Carolina Stingrays. So
Ryan Osofsky.
Yeah, there you go. There's another one, right?
Yep.
So he won it as a player there, and then he ended up coaching there. I actually wrote it down, kind of like his journey. So he won it as a player. He spent 5 years there as head coach. After that, then he was 3 years in Hershey as the head coach, so was already in the organization, went to be an assistant coach with the Toronto Maple Leafs for 2 years. And then now last year, obviously his first year there was, I think it's at a certain point getting consideration for winning coach of the year, the Jack Adams. Didn't end up making the final three, but early on this year, man, right back to his winning ways and firing up this group. And if you saw the clip after those back-to-back wins against the Flyers, him giving Pierre-Luc Dubois the puck, scoring his first goal as a Capital, it was pretty moving. Like you could tell how happy he was for Dubois. And then just to see the smile from Dubois and the hug and the embrace they had, it seems like now he's found a comfortable home after having a nightmare last couple seasons, or at least last year. So it just feels like, and even with Ovi having a slow start, the fact that they've gotten off to this hot of a start is I think it's a testament to Carberry and what he's been able to do there. I mean, he's one of these young up-and-coming coaches that maybe people didn't expect to be hired, where he's taken the reins and run with it, man. And he's got these guys playing hard.
They took a tough loss to Tampa, 3-0. Tampa, they look phenomenal. Vasilevsky hasn't even been that great, but Kucherov and the rest of the lineup that's hopped in, Gensel fits in perfect, but it's Hagel. It's that Brandon Hagel deal. And how good he's been since he's been over there. And like looking, why did the Blackhawks ever trade him? I mean, looking back now, so stupid was that. So,
and he was making like $1.5 million last year and the year before. It was, I want to say there was 2 first rounders going back the other way. So that is pretty enticing, but shout out to Tampa's scouts and the way that they're able to pry these guys making nothing. They got Blake Coleman a few years back when he was making nothing with New Jersey. They just are able to go scout and pry those guys. And I know first round picks are, they value them high, but they use them very, very, very wisely.
Tampa just continues to retool. Like I did think it could be a struggle this year, but Gensel's actually money. And then it leads you into Stamkos and his struggle and how he's going back. He's there tonight. Well, last night, as you're listening Tuesday morning, and it's probably tough going back and kind of having to go through the emotions and the questions from the media and the standing ovation, which he all deserves, and I'm sure he'll definitely appreciate. But if you're doing it as your team's winning and you're lighting it up, now granted, the team has turned it around a little bit. I think they've won 3 straight, but his numbers haven't been great. That's what probably makes it hard going back there. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you think it could even help him after this game's over with to just really move on?
Yeah, maybe it's one of those things that's been lingering in his mind. And once he gets this off his chest, it's like now they can just refocus. And they have been a little bit better ever since starting out 0-5. And yeah, sometimes these things can be more of a distraction, but a lot of emotions going into this one. And I'm sure he wants to win one for his squad and prove his old team wrong. Just to go back to that Dylan McIlrath story, like we ended up getting him on the post game. It was an awesome interview, but a guy who was drafted 10th overall by the Rangers and wasn't ever really able to crack an NHL roster. I think he's played, now that this podcast be recorded, I think by the time it's over with, he's going to be just over 80 games in the NHL, but that's over the course of what? I think it's been 14 years since he was drafted. So for first overall pick, and I actually played against him in the AHL, and man, if you're a high draft pick and you're playing in the AHL, you're getting chirped every game about being a high draft pick and not making it. Oh, bust this, bust that. So the fact that he was able to play as long as he did down there and continue to develop and continue to add to his bag, he ends up going over to Detroit's organization, winning a Calder Cup with Grand Rapids. Then last year ended up going to Washington Capitals camp and ended up signing a two-way, right? He ends up going down to Hershey. Well, boom. They ended up winning 2 years ago when he went to camp. He got sent down. He was the captain of the Hershey Bears. They win he wins his second Calder Cup. Well, they ended up winning it back-to-back. So the guy's got 3 Calder Cups. And then finally this year, after doing so much for the organization, he finally gets his chance to establish himself at the NHL level with this team. And he's been great so far in the time that he's played. He ended up having 2 assists in that game against the Flyers in that back-to-back. And that's why we ended up getting him on. So just to hear his story and through all the resilience and the effort he's put in to finally get his chance at this age, it's just a really, really cool story. And among all the other ones going on, you talk about Jacob Chychrun trying to find a home, and he's in a contract prove-it year. He's off to a hot start playing with John Carlson, which maybe some people were a little bit confused by because they're both very offensive, but that pairing has worked out great so far that they've been playing together. That McMillan finally having a breakout season and coming through for the McMichael, I call him McMillan for Christ's sake. O'Shanti, what the fuck I got going on today? Dylan Strome buzzing.
It's so dreary out.
It's so dreary. It's so goddamn dreary out. But it's just cool. It's a cool story, and they're off to a hot start. So I figured they deserved a little bit of love along with Dylan McElrath. So if you haven't heard that interview, go check it out online or dive into his story in general because it's a fascinating one.
I maybe think for him getting chirped in the minors, it wouldn't have been as bad because he'll punch your eyes shut, right?
I fought him twice.
Did you? How'd those go?
Oh, good. I would say even. You could go watch them yourself. And
is this you saying you won them and you're just trying to be nice?
No, I would say they were both pretty even.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull those up. I'm going to pull those
modest.
up for sure. Biz. Marchand responded. Brad Marchand, captain of the Bruins, responded to the discussion about Monty kind of snapping at him on the bench. And we chatted about this, but the one thing we did forget to mention is it is surprising Monty's lame duck coach right now. Like, he hasn't signed an extension. He doesn't have a deal after this year. Like, that has to be definitely weighing on him a little bit. You even if you say it doesn't, you're still thinking to have security as a player or a coach, it matters, right? So I don't know if that maybe ups his stress level a little bit. I know him a little bit. It doesn't seem like it would. But Marshy ended up saying it was no big deal, and he totally understood and would have wanted no other way than Montgomery also snap it on him like he would anyone else.
Yeah, I think we saw a few of these examples over the course of the last week. You saw Berube going out at the top line for Toronto. You saw Sealers. Is it Sealers? Am I pronouncing this properly?
Steelers and Torts.
And Torts were going at it. So I just think that these are nothing burgers that sometimes, like social media clips, people are trying to pop off with posting about it. Oh my God, the coach and a player arguing. Like, I talk about Mike Stothers all the time. He was one of the favorite coaches I ever had, and he would fucking snap on guys. He kept guys accountable nonstop. If you want to win a Stanley, you don't think fucking Paul Maurice is calling guys out and keeping guys accountable? Obviously, the stress level is a little bit down when you have a lineup that good and not a lot of mistakes are being made. But maybe in the early season struggles that Boston has had, it's something needed to be said. That was in the game against Utah where the goal ended up getting disallowed back, but Marchand had a turnover at the blue line. So fucking Monty gave him an earful. And I mentioned that we got Rick Bowness coming on TNT, and we were going to talk about him with that. And he talked about it where he's like, man, he goes, when I ended up getting the job with Winnipeg, the conversation I had with the players on the phone before I even got there was, we want to be held to a higher standard and we need to be held accountable. And if you're not doing it to your top guys, what does that tell your bottom six? And you can't just tell your bottom six and not hold your top guys accountable, because then you end up losing your bottom six. So you have to treat all of them, especially the guys at the top, the way that Monty has, the way that Berube has, and the way that Torts has, where it's like, if you're not playing the way that the systems have been explained to you and the way that your approach to the game is from a team perspective, give them a fucking earful. These guys are paid enough money and they're grown enough men where they can handle a fucking tongue lashing in public if they're playing the way that they're playing. I mean, you used to get your fucking cage grabbed at BU and all you were getting was free tuition.
That's what and books. I think I look back. looking at the Montgomery Marchand one, it only made any news because they were like, he put his hands on the players. Like there was actually people like, yeah, it's the actually touching the player. He put like a little hand on his shoulder. Like, they're like, imagine back in the 60s and like coaches probably choking guys out on the bench. Like, let's go, wake the fuck up. Like, big deal. Big deal. If you have a coach that like flicks a guy's shoulder, like we're not talking. I love the cage I got. What did I call it? Jack Parker used to get cage treatment. He'd just be shaking it. And I loved it. All of a sudden I'd be ready to go. So
you gotta love the comments online. It's like, oh, if this happened in a regular workplace, it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like I'm looking for a stapler behind the coffee
Deborah
machine
from HR at the fucking Bruins facility and explain her that one and see what happens.
It's just like to compare it to real life is crazy. So the Nothing Burger, your comment of Nothing Burger, I agree with, and I think keeping it old school. Not that we promote coach violence on players, but keeping it old school, Biz. We interviewed an old school beauty and a Stanley Cup champion. And talking to you after, I think we agreed it was one of the most interesting, entertaining interviews we've ever done. I mean, these old school European guys, they're amazing with how they became so successful in the stories of their lives growing up. So anything you have to say, or do we throw it to Bobby Holik now?
Yeah, just basically to piggyback what you said, just raised in a difficult time, and just the fact that he was able to play as long as he did and make it to the NHL. You're going to hear some of these stories where, you guys enjoy your new twigs and your new skates and getting decked out with your new gear. This guy came up a different way, and mad respect to Bobby Holik, and we can't thank him enough for coming on and also spending as much time as he did getting interviewed. I think we went well over an hour and some just crazy iconic Chiclet stories, and he might be one of my top 10 favorite interviews I've ever done. So enjoy it, Bobby Holik. Whip, before we go any further, I got to talk to you guys about DraftKings. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 24-25 season. Get in on all the action right now at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Chiclets. That's code Chiclets for the new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
We are now pleased to be joined by a veteran of over 1,300 regular season games, over 140 NHL playoff games, and a two-time Stanley Cup champion, born and from the Czech Republic, Bobby Holik. Thank you so much for joining the show. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
So where are you coming from? Because Biz and you have a little connection. Biz met your friend out in Jackson. I don't know if you're out there or Florida. Where are you at?
I'm in South Carolina right now. We've been, Jackson has been our home for 30 years now. Spent some off season during the playing times. Lived there full time. This is the retirement. I mean, full time. Excluding the travel and all that. But yeah, I haven't seen Biz there at all because I think he's hanging out with a different crowd. The only thing we have in common is our friend Arthur.
Yeah, I've been hanging out with the $1 Million Cowboy. You're out in the backwoods trying to shoot stuff so you could feed your family.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely $1 Million Cowboy bar is not my thing, and I like the outdoors there. Definitely great place. It's been a great place for our family. Go home.
I've never been lucky enough to go. I want to go out at some point, but it feels to me like it's really popped off last 10, 15 years. But you mentioned 30 years ago you started going out there. Like, how did you even first hear about it or decide to visit? And I guess you were early to the game. Yeah,
we were. Not as early as some, but not as late as others or as recent. But we heard from a friend, and this is way back before we had our daughter. We had a dog. We had nothing. Just two of us, my wife and I. We just drove out, and we immediately found the community being the best part of it. there's a lot of beautiful places, but it was a great community then. And we were there for a week. We bought a little house and we spent our off seasons there. And it's been a great ride since.
Also, Bobby, my understanding is you had like a brand deal with like a gun company from Czech Republic. So were you into hunting before you went there? And like, were there other things other than the community that drew you into it? Like, were you hiking maybe back home in the Czech before? Like, what was it that really drew you in from like the hunting side of it?
Well, I was always outdoorsy, even in Czech Republic. We have some mountains there. We lived in a beautiful. I grew up in a beautiful part of Czech Republic, which is not that well known. It's called, direct translation is highlands along the rivers. We had some beautiful woods and hills, and we camped and hiked, and did everything outside as kids. And I always liked the outdoors. And the hiking part was, I mean, it's limited in Czech Republic, but it's good. It's good. Good opportunities for that. But coming to United States and being able to go to Jackson Hole, obviously you take it to another level. But I was never much of a hunter because I just was outdoorsman, and I don't think I'm still much of a hunter. Actually my favorite part is bird hunting, because it's and there's some great challenging terrain and great challenging opportunities to do that in Wyoming. But I didn't start it until I retired because, as you know, probably, or a lot of listeners will know, most of the hunting seasons are in the fall, and I was busy, with training camp and the season. So, and I worked for a company called CZUSA. These are, the Czech Republic made firearms, and they import them here and I was a spokesperson, and I participated in the fundraisers and shooting tournaments, mostly sporting clays, trap, and skeet. And it was fun. About 11, 12 years I did that. It was a hobby that turned into a part-time job that kept me pretty busy with other things that I did.
It's funny you mentioned bird hunting. We just interviewed a couple of days ago one of your former teammates, Pat Verbeek, the current GM of the Ducks. Biz is actually into bird watching, but Pat mentioned that he's an enormous bird hunter. And he was talking all about his dogs. He said he's got 2 amazing dogs. One flushes him out, one goes and gets him. Do you get do you have a dog that helps you out with that?
No, he gets the horses.
Because of our work with horses, I don't have the bird dogs. I have friends with amazing bird dogs, and I usually hunt with them. I have some friends in Louisiana, in Arizona, in Wyoming, and I'll bring them along. I have the spots, and I'll bring them along, or they bring me along in other states, and we kind of work that way. I just didn't have time to properly train and keep a bird dog or 2.
Was horses something that you were always in love with? Because like when you ended up moving to Jackson, eventually you got a ranch where you had quite a bit of horses on property. You know?
Well, I never loved horses. I just fell in love with my wife, and she did it all of her life. So I just kind of married into it. And then our daughter was born, and I was busy playing. They were spending time to get us. Our daughter fell in love with riding, and they did it for a very long time until very recently. Our daughter's just graduated from medical school, so she started her residency, and that's when it kind of quote unquote fizzled out for her, because being a doctor is kind of a busy time, and being in medical school was very busy. But she tried for a couple of years. She showed and competed. She still loves it. But again, I fell in love with the women that ride the horses, like my wife and daughter, not necessarily the horses. But it was a great transition for after the retirement. I had so much to do. We had 2 horse farms, and I just kept, I was the farmhand, and it was long days and every day, and just awesome time to do it, because when you stop playing, you know how it is. It's like, what do I do now? So I had plenty to do, and we kind of slowing down now and downsizing, but that's just life. But it's been amazing to see my family enjoy it so much and being part of it after I retired.
Where could you imagine Seabiscuit just chilling in the stall, and all of a sudden Bobby Holik comes over for a ride? He's like, no.
He's like, no.
You know what?
He's like, my back hurts, trainer.
No
he
kidding.
Speaks English.
The horses sense your intensity, and I was fairly intense. I am, but I'm trying to be less intense. And the moment I walked in the barn in their stalls, even though I was having good intention, whether to take care of them or clean the stalls or whatever it is, or load them on a trailer to ship them, drive them somewhere. They knew when I was around because they all tensed up. But my wife and daughter did the show jumping, which is the jump, those big jumps. There was no racing. There was no ranching. It was a really defined English equestrian riding. So that's what they did. Show jumping.
Well, you mentioned your playing career and what an amazing run you had. In doing some research for our interview with you, I noticed that your father, Yaroslav Holik, he was a great player himself. He won the world championship in 1972, and I didn't know, did he push you? Is that who you looked up to? Did he play mean and hard-nosed playoff-style hockey the way you did your entire career?
Pretty much. We were same type of players, and he was probably more reliant on that spoken intensity, and the kind of, at the time, he was way ahead of his game as a rough player, but he also was very skilled. But for him to be successful, he had to find a way. And, it was basically be the meanest son of a gun on the ice. This way, he's got a little more time and space to display his skills. His brother, my uncle, was far more skilled and better skater and everything. But my dad felt like I got to play this way to really create the time and space I need to show what I'm all about. And I felt the same way. I wasn't the physical part of my game, basically setting the stage, had to come first for me to be able to utilize my skills. I didn't have the skills of Steve Yzerman or Joe Sacking or even Patrick Elias or Marian Hossa. I had good enough skills, but I had to set the stage first that it's not going to be easy. And then most of the players kind of backed off a little bit, and I had an opportunity to have some success.
So right from the beginning, you were like that at an early age. Did you always have the size, or was there a growth spurt? Because even from talking to Arthur, the first time he met you, he's like, Biz, I thought I was walking up on a fucking bear. Like this guy looks like a bear. And then you even alluded to the intensity where he said when you would jump on the drills with the kids, he said that something would just turn in you where your intensity would go to a certain level where it was almost like it was instilled in you and you didn't know how to shut it off when you were on the ice.
It was the hardest thing of it all to be volunteer coach for more than 10 years whether it was the high school or juniors on any, most recently I wrapped up another season of the trap shooting club 4-H in Wyoming. And that's by far the hardest thing was to moderate my intensity, because when I did something, I did it like the best I could. And not that I didn't do it best I could with the coaching, but I had to work on that intensity and that, yeah, you're right. The moment somebody passed me the puck or I jump in the drill, it's just a whole other world. And I consciously worked on it. And at sometimes it was too hard. I couldn't do it, but I was aware of that was like my quote unquote shortcoming as a coach, where the intensity sometimes was probably higher than it should be. But I was well aware that my expectation of players have to be, or of the players I coach, have to be a little lower or different than an expectation of myself.
And was that something that was kind of instilled in you from a very early age? I mean, I know you talked about your father saying you need to play aggressive in order to gain a lot of space for yourself, but was it always that switch when you hopped on the ice? Like it was time to work and it was time to focus and no fucking around?
Absolutely. My dad was awesome teacher. And of course he was a great father, but also a teacher and coach. And he said, when you do hockey, you give it everything you got, but it's not everything. So I developed this ability to, when I lace up the skates and grab the stick as you walk into the ice, I was just in the zone, and it was awesome, but that's not good for life. So I had to work. He also taught me as a mentor or as a father that, in life, you take the skates off, you put the stick on the rack, and you walk out of the ring, and you have to be a husband and a father and a teammate and a friend. So I got it early in life, so I could manage it and I thought I had I've done pretty good job doing it. But yeah, I had a great example. So genetics played a huge part of it, and also my dad being so wise and not only being great at what he did, but he never stopped learning, and then he relayed the messages to me. So I'm grateful to have dad like I did, and I owe him a lot. And so he's passed away almost 10 years ago. But when I do something, I do it the best I can because I want him to be proud of me, and no matter what it is, whether it's cleaning horse stalls or playing hockey or coaching kids, no matter what it is, you do the best you can.
Yeah, it's a great message. Like talking to my son, it's just like, hey, I don't really care if you're good or bad. Just try your hardest. So hearing that that's how you were raised, it makes sense for to hear and know about all your success. I'm curious about your dad. So in 72, they won the World Championship. That same year is when Russia played Canada in the amazing Summit Series, the 8-game series. So, I mean, that Czechoslovakian team was so good that they beat Russia in that World Championship. Like, they must have had some incredible talent with your father and other players.
So my dad was part of that World Championship, but he was a little too old. And then the Czechoslovakia won another World Championship in 1976 and also 1977. They also played really competitive games against the team Canada. I believe it was the 1976 Canada Cup. I think they were in the finals, and it was very, very close. And my uncle was on that team, and another gentleman who was my mentor way back then. I played with his son as kids, and he also got few world championships as a player, and also as a coach of the national team. He won a few world championships. So the 60s and 70s era, or the generations of my dad and my uncle and their peers, they were just phenomenal hockey players. Unfortunately, there was two worlds. There was the West and there was the East, and very few times their paths crossed. So not enough people knew until one of their teammates, Václav Nedomanský, came over and showed the world that there's a lot of good hockey players in Czechoslovakia.
Bobby, what were the resources like for you as a kid? I want to say we talked to Zdeno Chara, and he had to have stuff handed off to him from like the bigger club. So did you have 2-3 sticks on the rack, new skates every year, or was it hard to get like supplies from a hockey standpoint at that time in Czech, or because your father played, you had access?
I had access, but it was still, you better take care of it. I mean, skates or sticks, he would have access to it, but nothing like he was here in the United States or Canada or even Sweden and Finland. You had to be very resourceful. One of the things that the story I keep telling people is like my grandmother would sew a little pocket on my hockey pants because I had a one puck. And I brought the puck to the practice ring, and everybody else had a one puck. And if you lost the puck, you went home without a puck. Because when you were doing drills without a puck, you put the puck in your pocket. It was in the front of your hockey pants.
That is unreal.
So, and to this day, when I'm at the ring, I was just recently, in April, May, at a Wyoming select kind of a event where you select the U16, U18 for state of Wyoming. And I go around the glass and pick up all the pucks that were when it went over the glass and fell behind the boards to this day, because I'm like, I had one time, I only had one puck. And a lot of times we got into fights with kids because we were fighting for a puck just to be able to practice with the puck. Who wants to skate without a puck?
That is unreal story.
You would have puked when one of my good buddies, Christopher Stieg, Stanley Cup champ, he was healthy scratch for the Panthers with me one day, and was just flicking every puck out of the arena.
He wasn't happy about getting bag skated, so he's like, "Fuck this."
Next time I'm at the ring, one of the first things I'm gonna do is walk around there because there's so many pucks, and you can end up with 10, 15 pucks just walking around the ring once. You just throw it on the ice, and it just feels good to see multiple pucks out there, that everybody has more than one.
Do you have any other crazy stories about having to maybe walk to the rink a certain amount of miles just to get ice time? Like any other hard comings, I should say?
You know what? Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia is a hockey country. It's a national identity. People love hockey. We actually traveled with my family and I. We traveled in late May. The day we landed there, the day after they won the most recent World Championship, which was in Prague. So, and it was just like, people must have thought, that's crazy. That would have this and that. I'm like, no, that's what the country lives for. In the 60s, during the Cold War, in the 70s, even the 80s, they provided such a hope to the whole nation. If the national team did well, if we got medals, even the World Juniors, you go home and you're like, that's what you do because you represent a country. You represent the underdog. So you it's one of the motivating factor was that we were going, and Jaromir Jagr and Reichel and even Dominic Hasek. There's a bunch of players that we played together as youth, as they say, or juniors. And you go somewhere and you pull together even more than ever because you're representing small country. You're not representing yourself or the team. You represent the country. And I firmly believe that was part of the motivating factor where we all excel in the international stage because we represented something that we represented underdog country.
We interviewed Jagr once. He told some great stories growing up, and I noticed you were drafted the year before him. You just mentioned him, and any other guys like that were of your age that you came up together that made it to the NHL. And even with Jagr, there must have been memories of him at such a young age, already so dominant that you were like, oh my God, like this kid's going to play in the NHL. I think I could play in the NHL being a year older than him even.
Were you on a squat plan? He was doing 1,000 squats a day.
No,
back
I
then.
was on a different program. Yeah, but it's still not easy either. Like I was at a cottage. Again, we were there in end of May. I was showing my daughter and son-in-law. There was a river at the bottom of the hill where our cottage was, and we would when we couldn't get any rain because we had these tanks holding rainwater, and it didn't rain for a while. It was dry. You would just take 2 buckets. You would down to the river, fill them up, walk up the hill, dump them in a tank, and did that all day or a couple days until you had enough water in the water tank. So not necessarily squads, but carrying buckets of water up and down the hills. It was the same effect.
What about him? Just like playing with him growing up, like you talked about how your skill maybe came a little bit later. Was it evident not only did he have the size, but his skill was just at another level for that age?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually remember very, very clearly the first time I ever saw him play, and he was younger than myself and my peers. And so we were I don't know if it was in Klondike, his hometown, and you think, oh, it's an hour and a half away, but when you're a kid in a small country like that, it's a long ways away. So one time we were in the same place, same tournament, saw him skate, and everybody knew the difference between good players. And I was pretty good young youth player, but the difference between good players and the great one. Yeah, well, he was the great one. I don't not taking anything of regrets, but at the time you're like, wow, I can see the difference. This kid might be really good. And then, 3-4 years later, we ended up on the U16 team together, and U17, 18, and 19, and we were teammates and friends and World Juniors and the national team. And then we played against each other for a long time and almost 2 decades. And then a little bit together in New York. And that was incredible to be playing again with a player that you played 10, 15 years prior as a kid for U16 or U17. Again, I remember it very well. And I'm not that much of a hockey historian or remembering all these stories, but certain things you just don't forget because it's that special.
So a lot of guys your age or a little bit older even that grew up in Europe that we've talked to, they mentioned the NHL really wasn't even on their radar or in their dreams. It was playing for the national team and the club teams like your father and your uncle did. When for you, at what age were you like, I can get to the NHL? Guys from around here are playing in America and Canada now, and I think I can do this. Is that when you're 10, 11, or is that actually closer to the draft for you?
No, I was in a different situation because my dad was very outspoken. He was an anti-communist, very outspoken because of his childhood memories when the communism, was established and they took over his dad's business and all that. So he had a terrible, terrible experience as a child with communism. So all his career, he was very outspoken about the regime. And at times he was persecuted, not at times, all the time. But there was during his prime of his career, he was too good for the regime to kick him off the team. So for me, it was day one. The goal was to play in NHL, to leave for United States or Canada, both preferably United States, land of the free, land of the opportunities. And because of the country didn't treat him or the regime didn't treat him well or good. Not that he didn't deserve it, but that was just the times they lived in. And he was all about honesty and integrity. And, communism is everything but that. So he caused trouble. There's actually a book out there now. It's called Freedom to Win. A gentleman from California, Ethan Shiner, he wrote it about my dad struggles against the regime in the 60s and 70s during his career, and the way they grew up and what happened to his group, to my grandfather, his father. And again, it's called Freedom to Win. Not that I'm really selling stuff, but I have to say that story is so good that if you read it, you get it. And I came from a little different background. I wasn't really embracing the national team or the Olympics and all that. I was embracing the opportunity to defect as soon as I could. And my sister did that in 1987. She was a professional tennis player at the time. So we were raised with the idea of, there's a better world out there for us. And that's America.
That's incredible. And I wouldn't consider that selling at all. It sounds like it'd be an amazing read for what your dad went through. And just to go a little deeper into it, what was the business that your grandfather owned and what happened? They came in and just took it away? And
yeah, he was a lifelong dream of owning his own butcher shop in a small town where they're from, where my dad and uncle were born. And so he eventually, I don't know the years exactly, but it was like mid 40s, maybe early 1940s. And he finally had the opportunity to buy one, and he had his own shop, and him and my grandmother ran it. And my dad was born 1942, and they were successful at their business. In 1948, the communists came, and as if you know anything about the type of regime they run, they nationalize everything. That means they take your store, they put somebody else, some party loyalist, to run the store, and you're out. And he ended up working in a brick factory or something there just to be able to provide for his family. But it's a really, really great story. And that kind of, when my dad was 6 years old, it kind of traumatized him so much that he was such a fighter against the communists. And as I said, he had secret police, had the files on him and all that stuff. So I grew up in a little different environment. And so my goals were a little different than other players.
You said that your father was outspoken. Obviously, he had a platform because he was a player. Was there any consequence for him speaking out? Like, would they?
Yeah, he was suspended a couple times for the national team in his prime. And at the time, players didn't play that long. So any year or any time in a tournament, any Olympics you miss, then, it's costly. But he cared, but not enough. What he cared about was to be true to himself and to stand up for what he believed was right and the regime was wrong.
it just makes like what kids go through in America and Canada now and all over the world a little bit. Just you appreciate so much what your dad went through and his dad, and like nowadays kids don't have enough sticks or they don't like the time of their practice. It's like, no, we were fighting against a communist government, and it's incredible to see him fight through that and always stick to himself. And for you, so leading up to the NHL draft, considering you'd always wanted to defect and become an American citizen someday and play in America, you must have been so excited for the 89 draft. You went 10th overall. Did you know going in you were going to go that high? Where were you for it? And you must have been ready right to get to Hartford once you found out they selected you.
Oh, I wish it was that easy, but you know what? It wouldn't. It probably wouldn't be as much fun. So that day, I forgot about the draft. At the time, none of us were. We were still on the other side of the Iron Curtain. We couldn't just freely go to America, to any Western country to participate, to attend a draft, NHL draft. So I was home. My parents were somewhere at a cottage. Something. I'm like, you know what? It's Saturday. I went for a bike ride. Not a motorcycle, bicycle. Not an electric bicycle, just a regular bicycle. And I pedaled for most of the day. I went, we lived in that very hilly part of the country. It's so much fun. Still remember those days. And I get back home and in the kitchen, the only phone we had was hanging on the kitchen wall. And some of the listeners won't understand that there was these things attached to the wall with a cord. And phone rang. And I pick it up and somebody said, I don't even know who it was. And if there was English in Czech. And they said, oh, you were just drafted by Hartford Whalers 10th overall. I said, great, thank you. I hung up. I had no idea. I really didn't really think about it that much because I was still behind Iron Curtain. I would have to defect, okay? And I was just and going for my mandatory military service because I wanted to serve those 2 years and then defect after. The consequences were a little less if you serve the country, at least for the mandatory service. But 6 months later, the revolution came, the freedom came, So I was released, and I was fortunate enough. People say you were lucky. I'm like, well, lucky is when preparation meets opportunity. So I was prepared and opportunity came. But that's not my quote. That's Magic Johnson of the LA Lakers. But so I came over here and things were great. But if the revolution didn't happen, if the freedom didn't come to Eastern Europe, I would have to serve my 2 years in the military, play for the Army Club, like, Red Army in Russia. We had a team like that. And after I served, I would defect after if nothing's changed. So that was the plan. I spoke English at the time, or at least I thought I did, and I was ready.
If you had defected prior to the military service, like, is that something where you can't go back? Is your family affected? Like, what would have happened to those people?
So for me, it was like, if I play another 2 years there in an elite level and a national team, it helps me to become a better hockey player. And I also kind of check this box of serving. The consequences, you probably couldn't go back. I don't know. We didn't want to take that chance, because ultimately to play with the top players in the country and a national team, world championships, or, it was beneficial. So there was like, I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to go when I'm ready. But things changed, and I went, and I was ready anyways.
Who else there helped you prepare you for that next level?
His name is Josef Augusta. He played for the national team. Ironically, him and my dad didn't really get along. They were kind of not necessarily rivals, but just my dad didn't get along with anybody, So especially and Josef Augusta I played with his son growing up as kids for a long time. He played, I believe, on the left wing, and we played together for years. And then I kind of moved along faster, and I started playing for the professional team at 16. And Robert Reichel, you guys remember from Toronto and Calgary, he played same thing. We were like the same generation, and Yags was year after us. So, but this gentleman, Josef Augusta, who he meant, I didn't realize that there's something about it, because I came to the NHL, I had number 24 in Hartford, good couple of years. Other great things happened, but then I get to New Jersey, my heart of my career, and I got number 16. And looking back now, 35 years later, that's what the gentleman that I'm talking about, he wore number 16, and he helped me so much as a mentor, and not necessarily prepared me for the NHL. They didn't know what NHL is going to be like, but they prepared me, my dad and my uncle, this gentleman, Josef, they prepared me to be the best man I can be and best hockey player, and just be able to handle life. And it was just ironic that him and my dad were never best friends, or not even much of our friends. In the book, there's a story why they didn't have a best relationship, but he helped me so much that I have to mention him along my dad and uncle, because he was that influential. Again, not necessarily knowing what it's going to take to play in an NHL, but just preparing me, giving me the skills to be the best I could be.
When you got over to Hartford, I imagine it was just excitement. I'm going to play in the NHL. Was your first game maybe a little emotional, because how much it meant for your father to be over there, and his son was able to do it, and maybe he could have played at the NHL at a different era? Was it an emotional time when you made your debut in the National Hockey League?
Of course, it was exciting. And again, one of my biggest challenges even then was just to contain my excitement, contain my intensity, because I was just naturally not necessarily wound up, but so naturally, I love the game so much. I love playing the game that you get this natural high, but it's not always being about the most wound up. But it's a composure, control I consider those my strength, but you also have to be in control of them. You can't let them control you. And eventually I believe I got pretty good hold of it, or balance, where I could be more consistent, but it doesn't happen. With the first couple of years, no matter if you high draft pick, whatever, you have some great games, you have some good games, but there's games where you're just invisible. And it's because you cannot find a balance. You have to learn that. You have to watch older players. You have to watch how they prepare, what they do after the game, or what they say after bad game, what they say after good game. There's got to be consistency. And it takes a while, but by the cup year in 95, I think I was in a really good place where I consistently provided the team what the team was asking me to do.
What's wild to me is that a 19 and a 20-year-old in the NHL at your size in the power forward era, back-to-back 20-goal seasons at that age, and you're traded. The Whalers acquired Sean Burke for you. You must have been kind of shocked, I would say, because that's 2 really good years for a guy who's only going to get better and better as he gets older.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I always said I was at Brian Burke's office, and he was telling me that I was a big part of the team's future, and 2 weeks later I was traded. And I said that story many times, and eventually I was watching some junior hockey in Canada after I retired, and Brian was there. He's like, I really didn't intend to trade you, but it just came up, and the trade and the players, in return of trading you, were I believe that they're going to make our team better. I'm like, yeah, I understood that it was business, and I almost felt fortunate that it happened to me early on in my career, because you're like, okay, I'm here to do a job, nothing personal, and if they think they can get more from me, it's actually a good thing, because the other team wants you more than the current team. So it just kind of puts it in perspective. And again, it's a lot of things that young players don't know. They know how to train. They know how to eat. They know how to sleep nowadays. They know how to sharpen their skates or what they should be sharpened at. But they don't know that it's still a big business. And sometimes there's, coach won't play you as much because he needs to play somebody else who's being showcased. Or there's so many things that young players don't know. And it takes a lot of times too long, or they never learn the kind of insight of the game. And I think it's important to teach skills, conditioning. It's all great, but everybody teaches that, or everybody coaches that. But the inside of the game, like, what do you say after you win the game? What do you say after you lose a game? What do you say when you have a great game or a bad game? You have to be consistent, and because that's going to kind of put you on the next level. And there's just not enough of that, whether it's in junior hockey or even with the prospects today.
Before we move on to your time in New Jersey, you played one AHL game for Utica Devils.
I had a bad fracture. I had a hand surgery, and I was out in my first year in New Jersey. And then Herb Brooks, great Herb Brooks, he's like, you know what, you need to warm up or get used to the game speed again after so many weeks. And like, you should go to Utica. So Lou flew me to Utica for one game. We had weather delays, the snow, the plane got stuck in the snow, whatever. It was horrible. And I played. I didn't know where I was coming or going. And I got on the plane and flew back, and I played in New Jersey the next day. It was just Herb Brooks, he needs. And speaking of Herb Brooks, he said, you need to work on your skating because legs feed the wolf. And you'll never forget that. It's Herb Brooks. Or it was Herb Brooks. And, he was ahead of his time with some of his things, but we had him for a year in New Jersey, and it was great to be coached by him, but not necessarily great results.
What was your first impression of Lou?
I thought Lou was great from the day one, and I think he was my best boss to this day because he was from the same mold. Work hard, pay the price, good things will happen. And then as a general manager, he was so awesome because he eliminated all the distractions that come to young players or professional hockey players world. And all we did was show up at the rink. We trained, we practiced, we traveled, we played. And he's like, that's your job. That's all you do. I'll take care of everything else. We had the best travel schedule. We had the best meals. We had the best hotels, everything. It was, and then we just didn't worry about it. I think everybody who was good team player loved playing for Lou because he puts the team for, 35 years later or 30 years later, I got to explain that we had to wear socks a certain way or tape them a certain way, or the pants or the jerseys or the helmets. And people are like, oh, it's about control. He's a control. No, he's not control freak. You're on the team. The team comes first. And if the team has policies, self-imposed policies, you follow them. If you don't follow them, that team player, you're not going to last. Worked for us, worked for the team.
Lose at his ranch right now in Jackson.
Yeah.
He still makes you shave, doesn't he?
Yes, I shave, off, but I don't, I feel like it's my responsibility to look the best I can. And, whether it's getting a haircut, dressing better. I mean, it's all part of it. I came from that background. My dad was the same way. To me, it was not, people like, this guy, this coach is going to be tough. I'm like, after growing up in Czech Republic, my dad being my coach and my mentor, is going to be a walk in the park. I want it hard. I want demanding environment. I want discipline. I want responsibilities. Makes you a better man and makes you a better hockey player.
You ever get called in one time to get yelled at for a pee-pee whack from Lou?
I don't think, not off the ice activities, because I was just too, I don't drink, I don't party, I read books, I go to museums on the road. Like, you're not going to get in trouble for that. I got into trouble because of, a lot of times because of evolution of your career. Things happen, but off the ice, no, there wasn't me.
You get to Jersey, and that year you guys make the playoffs, lose in the first round. But I'm wondering if you could see what was to come, because the following year you lose Game 7 with the Stefan Matteau wraparound. Then you win the Stanley Cup. Right when you got there that first season, could you see the pieces in place and everything moving towards a dynasty type situation in Jersey?
Herb Brooks was great person. He's accomplished great things, but it was not the match. We started adding the players, and the optimism and just atmosphere, enthusiasm, everything was going up, but it just wasn't quite there. And then that following summer, it was a big deal hiring Jacques Lemaire, and that turned the franchise around. And following, even though Jacques was there only for 5 years, it just turned. Jacques' prodigies like Larry Robinson, they carried on that franchise for 10, 12 years of success, of Eastern Conference dominance, and ultimately 3 cups for them. I only won 2 with them. But you could tell that Jacques Lemaire was what that organization needed. Jacques Lemaire and his philosophy on life, philosophy on hockey, and everything else. And there's certain things that I believe, I don't know, that Lou had to compromise with Jacques. But to have Jacques as a coach, that was the key. Without that, it wouldn't happen, as I said. And Larry Robinson is his prodigy, and these guys were not only great coaches, they were great teachers, great mentors, and other people in the organization learned from them. And it just went on for 10, 12, 15 years.
I think what's wild is people think of Jacques Lemaire and his coaching career and winning the cup with you and coaching the Canadiens and the Wild. But he won 8 Stanley Cups as a player. And it's like, it's just wild to think about. So I'm guessing as he was your coach, like the things he would tell you guys, little things that would just help you win a game that weren't necessarily all structure based. It must have been so impressive because of the success he had as a player, just passing that along as a coach.
Coaching is one thing, teaching is another. And Larry and Jacques were both amazing teachers. And they brought Jacques Caron he was not a goaltending coach. He was Marty Berdour's coach. And that was all good for us because it kept Marty going at his best. And again, not only great coaches, but great teachers, great mentors, because there's more to it than just like, okay, this is how we do 2-on-1, or this is how we, come back check. That's just part of it. Just being able to learn how to handle the grind of the season. And again, it's not only when you lose, you're like, okay, we need to do better. But when you win and when you start winning, that's even harder. How do you stay balanced when you have all that success? And those guys had some success, multiple cup rings. So we kind of like listen to them because they've been through it. Not once, not twice, 8 times or so. And I don't know how many Larry has as a coach and as a player, Larry Robinson is a coach, player, and assistant coach. 10, 11. So those type of people, again, there's other people who have that kind of success, but these guys were just amazing teachers. And to this day, I think about what they taught us, and I try to use it when I coach youth.
That next season, when Herb Brooks is gone and Lemaire comes in, what was the thought like going into that series against the Rangers? Because it's the Eastern Conference Final. They got the 1954 curse, and then all of a sudden you're up 3-2. Messier makes the guarantee. We interviewed him recently. He kind of talked about saying that before Game 6. What do you guys remember when you read on the paper like Messier guarantees a win?
Well, he had nothing to lose. If they lose, we move on and they go home. Nobody's gonna go to his house and say, "Hey, Bass, you guaranteed that he's going to win." Okay, I'm not taking anything away from his performance on the ice. It was amazing, but you can, like you guys in the media or biz on the between in intermission reports or whatever you guys do there, during the playoffs, like you can say whatever you want. if it doesn't happen, nobody's there with microphones like, hey, you said this.
That's not true. I guarantee
Everyone remembers everything. The internet's undefeated.
I guaranteed a Chiclets Cup win last year, and Witt's been all over me ever since. So people do remember it sometimes.
So when he said that, I'm like, you say a lot of he's a great leader, or he was a great leader. He had to inspire the team, and then also inspired it by his performance. I got to give him credit there. Going to the game 7, it was like, okay, we still have a chance, but when we actually lost, I thought, maybe it was our time. And then we learned from it, and the next year we were just dominant in the playoff. There was no way of not winning it. So because maybe we had the difficulties the year before. But you know what? You have to learn from it. If you don't learn from it, you gotta repeat it next year. We didn't. We went through, and we set the record at the time with 10 road wins, I believe. I think it's been done before. But we played 16 wins, 4 losses in a playoff run. So that was a pretty good run,
And you
Unbelievable.
swept a powerhouse in Detroit. And like people were picking the Red Wings, and it was their time and all their skill, and the Russians. And I mean, it just turned into domination. I was actually YouTubing one of your goals in that series. Nice little give and go. And what was the message going into that series on how to shut that team down and how to take away all the weapons they had?
No time. Nowadays, I've been out of the game for a while, but everybody's time and space. Back then, we were like, let's get after them. And the moment they touched the puck, one of us was on them. Not only straight hit, just good angle. So you either had a hit line up for a good hit or angle them to the back, to the boards. And I remember that we were just give them no space because we were just like bees, just constantly going at them, just working. And every one of us, no matter how good the player or how talented they were, we all play the same way. And then when you have, Scott Niedermayers and Neil Broughton at a time, these are game breaker type of players. So as long as we played as a team and played as hard as we could, we had the players to put us on the top. And that's what happened. And I always say about the 95 team, that was the best team I've ever played on. There was no better team as a team. We've had better players on a team like in 2000 or 2001, but we strictly won in 95 because of the team effort and team play.
So we were following around Edmonton for the playoff run, and Witt's a big Oilers guy, played there, and they go all the way losing game 7. And you just mentioned maybe it wasn't our time. So you said the next year you guys had figured it out. What was it that you figured out in order to finally win the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, it was, we need to be tighter. We need to be stronger. We need to be more consistent. Going to the conference finals, game 7 against heavily favored team was not good enough. There's so many more things you need to do better. And the mistakes you make, or maybe it was 7 games against Buffalo Sabres in the first round that caused us not to have enough energy in the conference finals. We learned that, and it actually happened again. We won in 2000, and in 2001, we made not similar mistakes, but other mistakes that we all learned from. And fortunately for the franchise, they won again in 2003. But those are, we played 7 games against the Sabres. No, that was for 94. I don't know. It just sometimes you play too many games. Instead of putting the series away, you just you play another game or 2. Instead of sweeping or doing 5 games, you play 7. It's some games you play too many shorthanded situations. You might kill them all, but you have the same players on the ice wearing out, and they might not have the juice when it comes to next series. It's so much is involved in the playoffs that you really, really have to be on top of everything, every step of the way, every single day, whether it's practicing, whether it's traveling, whether it's games. So you learn. If players and teams who learn, they have more success down the road.
Was Scotty Stevens the most intimidating guy to play against during that era? In practice, if you were coming through the middle, would he bury you the same way he buried Lindros?
Yeah, and I would. He would. Me especially, because we were extremely competitive. I remember the days. Next time you have Gomez or any of the players on from that era, ask them what it was like to practice when we were doing drills and Scotty and I were going at it, just all out. Because you know what? You practice the way you play. You play the way you practice. So maybe that's a little too old school because nowadays it's different. But that's what makes you better because you practice. Sometimes the games were easy because I didn't have to play against Scott Stevens. I didn't have to shoot on the net against Marty Brodeur. Like every game, ask Marty next time you talk to him. I was very, very competitive. I would, as I crashed the net in the games during my career, against the opposite goalie, I would do that to Marty in the game, in practice. Just not for his betterment, for me. That's what I do in the game. I'm not going to stop doing it in practice. Some peers, some teammates, they're like, this guy is an ass. He works too hard or he plays too hard. I didn't know any other way, So again, I didn't have enough skills or talent to just rely on that. I had to set the stage, be physical first, and then I had some time and space to use my skills, but not one or the other. I had to do it all every single day to even be competitive, to be consistent, to be helping the team to win.
And the year after you guys won it, you missed the playoffs. You were really coming into your own. Your 3 best years in the regular season were those final 3 before the next cup. But as Sikora came and Elias and Gomez, did you start seeing like, all right, there's something else brewing here? Like it's not a one and done for this organization.
That's when I came up with the saying. I'm your first line center. We don't make the playoffs. I'm your third line center. We win the cup because, I believe if I play on the third line, you have a pretty deep team. And, they got Arnaud and Gomez came and towards the late 90s. And finally, I find myself playing a third line center. I didn't feel any better because I thought I was the best third line center in the world or in the league. So you can only do what you can do. And I thought that was my role. That was my spot. And that was my sort of sweet spot. I think we all have to realize what our roles or kind of limitations are and play with it. You can still be great, but you just have to be you at being great yourself, not playing somebody else. Everybody wants to be a 50 goal scorer, Biz, don't they?
Hey, buddy.
Biz just wanted 5.
I would have taken 3.
But only few of them can be. So I was like, I don't want to be a 40, 50 goal scorer. I can be a player that contributes different ways. So,
well, Bobby, you've been dropping a lot of quotes this podcast, and I got one for you. Don't score too much because then they start expecting it. That was one that was passed on to me from Dennis Bomby.
Yeah, well, that happened to me. I had 29 goals in 97, maybe 97, 98. There was 16 games left. And they were like, well, you're going to be a 30 goal scorer. I was like, no, I won't. No, just kidding. I just couldn't score for the rest of the year. And I ended up with 29. So I never became a 30 goal scorer. And it still worked out for me.
Oh, no, that was your closest opportunity to get the 30?
Yeah.
What made Marty Brodeur so good? I've heard stories that he was able to, anytime the puck was coming, he would control where it went with the rebound.
Well, he controlled with his rebound because he worked on it. That's a skill. That's not you can only do that when you are able to do that. His strength was the work ethic and his desire to be the best he can be. Not necessarily best in the world. He ended up being best in the world, if not best ever. But it's that if I'm going to put this gear on and I'm going to go on the ice, I'm going to be the best I can be. And you do that day in, day out for 20 something years, you're going to get a good result. That's what kids, I work with kids a lot, don't understand that when they're like, oh, doing my hardest every single day, don't worry about tomorrow. There's plenty to worry about tomorrow. Worry about do it today. Be the best you can be today. And I think Marty had that approach since he first put his pads on when he was probably 4 or 5 years old. And Scotty Stevens had the same approach, and Niedermeyer's and Elias and Hossa. I mean, Hossa, I got to play with Marion in Atlanta, and that's one hardworking hockey player. And he was complete player because he was just, yes, he had talent and everything, but there's a lot of talented guys. But man, he changed Chicago Blackhawks. They had a lot of great players, but he made them Stanley Cup contenders. I'm not saying single-handedly, but they needed a player like that. Without him, I don't think they could have won.
You must feel blessed to have gotten to play with that many guys in one locker room. I'm sure most championship teams have that, but like looking at that roster and all the guys that you had in and out, and you're staying with the mentality that they brought to the rink every single day, it must have made it so enjoyable. There was no anchor.
I absolutely agree with you. I was blessed with the opportunity to be next to the guys in the same locker room. Not only players, the coaches, the trainers, everybody. It was my time in the NHL, my time in hockey it couldn't be better. I feel the same way. I was blessed. It was just, you know what? Was it because I got lucky? Again, I believe if I didn't give hockey everything I had, I wouldn't be the same. But when it's always just like life. It's not what you get out of life. It's not what you get out of hockey. It's what you give it. That's what you have to start with. And I felt comfortably retiring because I had nothing more to give.
You're like a motivational speaker. I'm really enjoying this. And it makes sense as to why you had so much success. But going into 2000, you guys meet Dallas in the final, and they had a offensive juggernaut as well, right? And so it was your job, I believe, from reading, like you were going to shut down Modano. And you were able to win the Stanley Cup, shutting him down, and Sikora got injured, and Elias was there, so you got to win it with other Czech guys. Like, what do you remember about that series? Was it a similar message going into that as when you played Detroit?
I think we were more mature, more experienced team than we were at the time. And we still have a bunch of players on the team from the 95 championship. There was additions. There was young play. You know, that was 95 was just like amazing team togetherness. 2000 the team was, we had much better players. Big Gomez, Elias Sikora, who else? Rafalski, Madden, Colin White. That's a lot of youth on the team. And the combination of veterans, the middle players, mid-level players, and the young players made that team what it was. And yes, it was great. I was in Prague a month ago. We had a meeting or sat down for a coffee with Patrick, and we've been friends for a long time. His first year, he played on my left wing, or our left wing, Randy McKay, myself, and Patrick. And we always say, we kid around, he had such a great career because he got a great right start, And those some great players, but they were young. We as veterans had a responsibility to not only play a certain way, but practice a certain way and act a certain way. So they stayed focused and kept the eye on the ball, so to speak, because it's a long game.
So bring me through the locker room when you find out with about a week to go in the season in first place that Robbie Ftork's fired and Larry Robinson's going to be head coach. Because that was not just shocking for the entire hockey world, but I'm guessing for you guys.
That's a crazy move. That's a Lou move.
And it worked.
I'm not kidding. I said, what took so long?
Wow. You could tell.
Because I could tell. And I'm sure other players wanted to tell. I just was more vocal about it.
What was missing?
Robbie was a great teacher. But I go back, Robbie and Tom Rennie were very similar in what they do. They help so many young players become better players. But sometimes you need something else, different personality, different style to go to the next level.
Different message almost.
Yeah, just handle the player. Between Scott Stevens, you have a big difference. You have players like Patrick Elias, who was like 3 years in the league, or Peter Sikora, or Scott Gomez, who was a rookie. And then you have a Scott Stevens, who's been around for maybe 15, 18 years at a time. You can't treat them the same way. You have to know how to treat these players differently. The coaches I remember coaches coming to the locker room saying in training camp, I'm treating everybody the same. And I'm like, oh shit, we're in trouble. Because you need all kinds of players. You need rookies, you need veterans, you need guys who just came up from the minors. You have to know who and what your players are, and then deal with them that way. Robbie was great, but we had, quite a few. It was a veteran team with young players, and he just, again, same thing with Harry Brooks. Great guy, great coach, but it wasn't the right time. And Robbie was great for all of our young players, but there's more to the team than that. And we just couldn't, as the pressure went up towards the end of the season and going into the playoffs, just before the playoffs, I think he was not quite comfortable with leading the team.
I always had a tough time in being confident enough in myself to maybe call out other guys. I didn't fight. I wasn't overly physical, but it seems like you were opinionated enough, and in your style, were you confident in saying to somebody in the room at an intermission, you got to get going, we need more from you?
I was, but what I had to do first is to give my best. I couldn't do that. I know some players who wanted to do that, and when they did that, but they were at times maybe thinking a little more about their personal statistic and all that. I can honestly say today, 15 years after I hung up the skates, I said I always put the team first. It didn't come across always the best way, but I never really had intentions of like, I'm going to play a certain way because I need to pad my statistics or I'm going to be free agent. I said, you know what? I'm here to play hockey. It's a team sport. And that's how I grew up. That's how my dad was. So it wasn't like a stretch. I mean, it's in my blood. But to ask others to do more, you have to do absolutely the best you can. And so that makes it a little easier because they see that Steven was great at it. He wouldn't say anything for the longest time because he would just lead by example. But then when it came down to it and he said something that was necessary, then he said it. And everybody's like, okay, we're putting our tail between our legs and gonna do more. We have to do more. With Scotty says.
That seems like a type of guy when he talks, you listen and you shut the fuck up. Who is the craziest guy you've ever played with? Well, let's go back to New Jersey. Like, were there any wild cards where you're like, damn, with the way they run things around here, like how is he kind of getting away with doing everything that he's doing? Like Scotty Gomez seemed like a bit of a wild card to me.
Scotty he's a great friend. I think he's doing really well. He's coaching up in
he's buzzing.
So so he's doing well. I talked to him maybe a month ago. It was a long conversation. I'm glad to see him maturing and doing really, really well as far as coaching goes. When he first came in, I immediately felt for him because he couldn't be more opposite, but he was in the same situation because he was himself. He wanted to be himself. He wanted to be Scotty Gomez. And suddenly people would be like, who is this guy? Why is he so happy-go-lucky? Doesn't he don't care? Is he lazy? But I could see the goodness in him. He was a team player. He wanted good, but he was just different personality. And sometimes in hockey, especially because it's a very kind of an old traditional game, especially the Canadians, the old school boys, they're like, you got to behave a certain way. You have to, otherwise you're lazy or you don't. I wasn't that way. I came from Eastern Europe. I came from Czech Republic. I wasn't, grew up in Saskatchewan or Toronto, Mississauga, and they looked at me. I had a little bit of issues with my own teammates off the ice because of, you're not the way we are. There's something wrong with you or you don't care or you don't like us. Well, Scotty was the same way, but he was opposite of me, like different. So I remember that. There was no hesitation. I was like, I know what this kid's going through. I'm gonna be there for him. And we became great friends throughout the years. And what he was going through is where people were judging him on his kind of outgoing personality. And they thought that it applies or it makes him not as good of a hockey player or not as good of a teammate. But opposite couldn't be true. So I related to it. And again, I was trying to be there for him throughout his, first few years.
The following season, you guys run into Colorado, and I would say, since you'd already won 2 in the past, whatever it was, 5 years, it's Ray Bourque going for a Stanley Cup. I think nobody was rooting for the Devils besides Devils fans. You must have felt part of that, and not necessarily being the underdog, but being the bad guy, and then dealing with all that, and having just won it the year prior, how tired you guys were. Even though it went Game 7, did you feel like you were just a step behind in that series?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people. That's why I'm sitting here in my living room. I'm not working in hockey because I'm probably a little more analytical and cerebral, and I think for myself more than most hockey people. So I'll tell you why. We played too many games early. It was a back-to-back finals. We won the year before, going all the way to the finals. But it's not the finals that caused us. It was the previous few rounds where we played again. Too many games against teams we shouldn't have. We played at least extra game against Carolina. We played Philly. We were down 3-1 in the conference finals. We pulled out of there. I don't even know. Just too many, examples like that is just sometimes you play one extra game in a series, then you play another extra game, then you play overtime because you just didn't have a best game. You play double overtime. And then when you do the back-to-back finals, you like, you know what? Game 6, I remembered like very well. First period, we overwhelmed Avalanche at home. We were up 3-2. We won in Colorado, came home for game 6. First 20 minutes, we were all over them. With minute left, they scored kind of a weak goal. I'm not saying it was Marty's fault, but you know, it wasn't like they outplayed us and completely dominated us and won the period. No, they scored, and I could tell on the bench, we were deflated. Because we tried, we gave it everything we had, and after that, we lost game 6, then we lost game 7. We were just done. Panthers last year, they played a lot of tough games. And then when they got to the finals, they weren't even competitive because you just run out. That's why you have to learn and do the right things all the time because the playoffs will kill you before you get to the end. And then sometimes you're up to nothing. You end up tying 3-3. You go to overtime. You play tight overtime for, period and a half or 2 or 3, whatever it is. That's going to get you down at the end.
Did you have any feeling or inclination that following season would be your last as a Devil? Did you realize maybe that Lou wouldn't be willing to pay what you could get on the open market? Or did you go in thinking, I might be able to re-sign here?
That was my priority. I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay in New Jersey for a long time. But again, I learned it by 2 years in. When I got traded, I kept reminding, it's business. Sometimes there was no salary cap, but I believe Lou had his own self-imposed salary cap where it's Marty, it's Scotty, and it's everybody else. And I thought that, my agent contacted him and I wanted to stay desperately. But at the same time, it was my only opportunity to really maximize my earning potential. So I couldn't afford to stay for a lot less. I would have loved to stay for less, but not a lot less. So Rangers came through. It was a great signing.
Yeah, they did.
Great decision.
Were you shocked when they paid you that much dough? Like, no offense to you, you had an incredible career, 2 Stanley Cups at that point, but what'd you get, like 9 a year at that time?
Yeah. No, it was that, and Toronto was very close. New Jersey was very close, but the way they structured it because of the potential lockout and all that. So it was a great decision for us as a family. It was a great decision for a lot of things. Unfortunately, I'm very, very not disappointed, but sorry that it didn't work out. I would have loved to have success in New York because it was a great place to play, great people, great fans, great city. It was fantastic. Everything about it except the results, but you can't always get it what you want.
Devils fans, you must have heard from them, right? Like, you're going to sign anywhere, you go to the Rangers. And it's a business decision, like you've mentioned. But God, that must have been tough for Devils fans to deal with. You must have kind of felt some of that heat.
Winning a cup next year, he's their pain. They won the cup in negative the following year. So,
Very true.
That's how life works. Everybody gets what they want if they work for it, and they won the cup, and I got what I kind of. I got the financial security that I was looking for, from New Jersey initially because I really, really wanted to stay there.
Your payroll was over $100 million.
No, it wasn't 100. It was like in the 70s. I believe in the 70s. I don't know the exact number.
Which for them was crazy.
Yes, it was. Only Detroit and New York had it. But I'll tell you what happens with players. Players don't change. I signed as a 2-way center, probably the best third-line center in the league. I signed with New York Rangers for big money, a big signing bonus, and, opportunity to play in New York. And as I said, the money in Toronto was very similar. So I had other choices. I wanted to play in New York. It didn't work out. But what changes is the media perspective, the fans' perspective. They look at you, 6 months prior to, not even 4 months prior to that, I was a 2-way player in New Jersey doing what I was doing for whatever salary I had, and everything was great. And then the same player, going into camp in the fall, but they're like, well, but he's making 4 times as much as he was the year before. He's got to be 4 times the player. No, that doesn't work that way. It's just, and media gets into it and fans get into it. It's just like it's the same old player that was making this, but the way the free agent market works, you get more because you got that far with the success you had. So And it happens all the time. You see players, maybe not as much now because they get young players to long-term deals because of the salary cap and all that. But at the time, it happened all the time where players sign contracts and everybody's perspective changes and you don't change as a player. You could do exactly the same thing. You could have the same numbers and it'll be like, oh, he's not the player he used to be.
In your press conference when you signed it, were you trying to remind everyone like, hey guys, like, I know I'm making 9 here, but I'm a third line, two-way center here. Let's not get crazy.
You know what? I was crazy enough to think that people would think that way, that they would kind of okay.
Could have got ahead of it.
Yeah, I should have. And then I'm looking back, I'm like, okay, this is what happened. Everybody's perspective changes because your contract changed. You could be the same player. You could do exactly the same thing, which my second year in New York that I didn't get hurt. I had the same numbers. I had the same kind of statistics that I would have previous 7 years.
Was it ever tough mentally for you in New York? The team's not winning that much. Like, did you struggle a little bit with dealing with all that stuff?
The bad part was that I thought that would have been a great place to have success. Not because you're famous, but because the city embraced the team so much. The fans, and they're so loyal. And the Garden, especially the pre-renovated Garden, was a great place to play. That's what I thought. The energy of the city was amazing. So I was like, if we had only a little success, this would be really, really fun. But it didn't happen. It happened. Life is such, and we're all moving on.
You ever seen the Woody Harrelson meme?
No, I'm not into memes much, and I can't really tell on this small screen. But maybe next time you can text
Woody
it to
Harrelson, right, wiping his tears with $100 bills.
Okay, I didn't do that, but and I didn't cry either. I just wanted really for the team to be better and maybe have some success, and just didn't happen. That's okay.
And I guess we got it now because we're there. Atlanta, you got to spend 3 seasons there, or the better part of 3 seasons. What was it like playing in a non-traditional market like that? All of a sudden going from like Hartford, you were basically in that whole New York, Connecticut, New England area your entire career. And all of a sudden you're down in the non-traditional market in Atlanta.
I loved it. I loved Atlanta at the time. Great people. I think the organization was good. I think the problem was the ownership there was multiple owners who couldn't agree on anything. So kind of a misdirection, but I didn't regret it at all. It was a great opportunity to experience different market. Staying in the East, I was in the Eastern Conference all my career. So I felt bad for the city because people were supported. It was just kind of mismanaged. And that's what happens. You a lot of times you look at the teams and like, oh, these players, they got to get rid of this. You know what? They need to get rid of the general manager or the owner or the coach because the players are not at that level because they are either selfish or lazy. They're there because they work their butts off to be playing in an NHL. But some of the decisions that are made, either, the coaches or the general manager, you're like, wow, how can that be happening over and over again? And they just either trade players or they release them. It's like, it's much easier to get rid of or change players than it is the GMs or the coaches, I guess.
When you realized that maybe your career was coming to an end, I know you mentioned just with what you had off the ice, it really helped you your first year away, but was it hard to realize like, all right, I don't know if I have this anymore. I don't know if I have the passion or want to do this.
It wasn't about the effort. What came to me, it was just like, you know what, this is not going to get any better. I'm 38 years old. I had such a great career, probably far beyond that I ever thought I would get. And again, I was not going to ask for more. I got far more than I ever thought I would out of hockey. So it was just like, you know what? It's time. It's time to go. And as much as I loved playing and as much passion I had for the game, it was never everything in my life. So there was other things in life that you want to experience and be around, and you move on. It's I would have to be a player or former player to constantly rely on what I did in 1998 or 2003. That's a long time ago. I wanted to be somebody who's, okay, I've done this, I've learned, I'm financially secure now. I want to be for my family and help them out and support them, whatever, as well as they supported me during those were easy decisions. I was like, as I said, I got far more out of hockey than I ever thought I would. So, and I had nothing else to give. So it wouldn't be fair to the game for me to stick around.
Bobby, outside of family, and obviously retiring, like, was there any other goals that you had when you came out that you were able to achieve? Like, what else have you done in your post-retirement, saying that you had other things that you wanted to go move on to?
Well, the first and foremost, I retired. The priority, the first and foremost reason was to be there for my wife and daughter, because they were in the midst of our daughter's riding career, and career in quotation marks. And she just something that she loved doing. And we did it as a family. You know, it was a hobby, but she went really, really far with that. And the following about 10 years, 12 years, it was all about horses and competing, and her going to school and being able to compete throughout college and medical school. And eventually they came to the end too, because as I said, she just graduated from medical school and she's in residency. So and that was the priority of when I retired. And it was phenomenal being with them and seeing them work so hard and being dedicated to their passion like I was to hockey. So that was that. And then I got the opportunity to work for the gun company, which was great because I always liked firearms growing up. I couldn't have any in the communism and here in this country. And then I became, youth mentor for firearms and safety and skills. So the teaching, and I a part-time coach. I coached high school hockey in Wyoming as well. That's where I, know Arthur from. A lot of different things, but most of it was about giving instead of getting, because I felt so fortunate to be able to play hockey since I was like organized hockey from 5 to 38, and then professionally for 21 years, including the 3 years in Czechoslovakia. That I'm like, the fun is to give. And when it was to give to my family or give to youth in Wyoming, teaching them, coaching them. And I'm still the same way because I've done everything I could and beyond for me. I really, really appreciate opportunity to give, and teaching and coaching is something that I never thought I would have so much fun.
One other thing you mentioned earlier on in the interview was that you like to read and visit museums. Now, when you read now, do you read in English?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, my morning routine is like when I first get up, I get up really early and I read
5 a.m. I heard you get up every day.
I read a couple of English publications, not necessarily American. I read an American publication, Israeli publication, Czech publication, and then I read books, real books, and then I do some Spanish. And at 7, I get on with my life.
Before we let you go, what kind of doctor's your daughter becoming?
She's working to be a pediatric neurologist. She worked very hard to get there, and she's working very hard to continue her education.
I just wanted to know any book recommendations for our listeners that you think are like ones that you maybe even go back to once you're to read that would help them through life or anything that they might be going through.
Dennis Prager, he has a radio show. I call him a philosopher of modern times. He helped me a lot in my adult life or in the last few years to kind of stay focused on what's really important. He's a radio personality. I used to listen to him when we traveled. He wasn't on the East Coast. And then when we traveled to like Southwest, like Arizona or California, I would listen to him on the radio. This is, a long time ago. And he's just a very interesting person. As far as book goes, you know what? I have a hard time remembering the titles. Sometimes I remember the title, sometimes I remember the author. But every book that I read is full of earmarks and underlining. So I have to go back, and sometimes I screenshot certain parts of the book because I'm gonna need it eventually. So I'm a big nerd as far as learning. I love to learn, so I try to. Not a typical hockey player.
And my last question is if you could recommend any museum on the planet, which one would it be? What's your number one?
It would be definitely I would start with Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and then Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. It's also Holocaust. That will put the world in perspective. And a lot of people today have a hard time defining evil. they will help you tremendously because there's a lot of evil out there.
And we appreciate this because it's been a blast hearing about your life, who you are as a person and your family. So thank you very much, Bobby.
Thank you for having me.
And perfect timing here before we stop the recording. Scotty Gomez says, smartest guy off the ice, had the best shit talking line to a whole bench I'd ever seen. You remember what he's talking about?
Oh yeah, but that's not me anymore. That was me as a player. I've worked very hard to get away from that. Most people hockey remember only that, but as you can tell, there's more to me than what I was like as a player.
We'll leave that to people's what do you call it?
He's moved on, Biz. He's moved on. Thank you so much,
Their
Bobby.
imagination. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, before we go any further, I got to talk to you guys about Labatt Blue Light, Unreal Pilsner. We were gassing. The boys were gassing these things in our sandbagger with Andrew Raycroft and Tuukka Rask. They were enjoying them. I didn't realize Tuukka was that spicy. I think he had a little bit of help from our friends at Labatt Blue. And we hope you guys take out a page of the Labatt Blue Light book and enjoy your beers together so you can live life to the power of we. And you can find Labatt Blue Light at labattusa.com/finder.
Thank you so much to Bobby Holik. I think what I'll remember forever about this interview, one puck.
That's crazy. The pocket,
one puck.
The pocket
Kids
in
are
his
shooting
pants.
pucks and missing the net in their backyard and not even going and getting them out of the woods and just leaving them. And this guy had one puck carried it around in his pants pocket. Amazing.
That's hardcore.
Amazing
That's
interview.
hardcore. He deserved everything he got.
I forgot to mention earlier, Biz, and considering Bobby Holik was a devil, but I'm wearing the Mr. Ice necklace. The Mr. Ice necklace from IceCon. Elio, Mr. Ice, he was awful, making people pour on his overbets to start the year. So he hopped on a plane this past week, 5 a.m. flight to Detroit, where they played the Devils, because he said he had to go live to get some goals, and the game went over. And I just figured, after you got to experience IceCon and the Ice people, I'd rock the necklace and kind of remind you that he's back.
So I think the funniest part about it is once they tied it 3-3, he didn't even watch the end of the game. He just left the building. He just finally got off the schneid. Oh my God. What a crazy man.
I said the same thing. He sent the video and it was going to OT. He's like, oh, not even OT. It was done. It was just like the game. He decides to leave. I'm like, oh, I thought he'd at least be invested on the wings pulling it out. Nope. He's all about goals.
Unbelievable.
So that cracked me up.
So now last year they did IceCon, or we did IceCon because we ended up doing it at the Coyotes game. Unreal showing. We went to the DraftKings Sportsbook right by TPC Scottsdale beforehand. Now, I'm hoping that we do an IceCon every year.
We are doing one this year. I'm
trying to convince Portnoy and Elio and the rest of the crew. I think that we should do it at the Winter Classic. It makes way too much sense. There's a DraftKings Sportsbook right attached to Wrigley. It's right there. We can all march over. We could all have our white Mr. Ice gear on, and you could be at the Winter Classic. It's probably going to be snowing out. It's basically going to be literally IceCon outside. So why wouldn't we do it there?
I love the idea. It's in Nashville.
Oh, he's already decided?
I didn't know it either until just last week. Because I said to Dave, I said, Portnoy, or he texted me, ice is a disaster. I said, there's not even going to be able to be an IceCon. Nobody will be able to afford flights. And then I said, when is it? Where is it? He said, Nashville this season. So I didn't know because Chicago to me would have been perfect. But I'm at least happy he won a game.
All right. Well, congrats to Elio and Mr. Ice and all the Ice people who finally won a bet, and now they can hopefully pay their rent. What else do you got, Woody?
Well, considering Holik also bringing it back to him was a real prick in practice and played hard and practiced hard, we went out west. We go out west, I should say, Vancouver, and apparently J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson got into it. This relationship has seemed like it's not gone over well since basically the minute Miller got there.
Yeah, it was worse when Tocchet wasn't there. And I think that last year it seemed to have been repaired a little bit. And listen, everybody could say, oh, this is a nothing burger, like no issue here. But with the way that Petey had been playing to start the year, he finally scored his first 5-on-5 goal since Christ was a goddamn cowboy. And maybe that was the spark that it needed. But I just think that when you got a guy who competes as hard as J.T. Miller does, not only in games, but in practice, it can be a little bit frustrated when you have the guy who's been paid all this dough and maybe he's moping around a little bit. The intensity's not there. To be fair to Pettersson, I think over the last 3 games, his compete level, he's looked a lot more engaged. He's looked a lot better. I think it all started with that game against the Flyers in which they smoked him. I mean, who doesn't look good against the Flyers these days? But that's when it started turning the corner. But sometimes these things boil over in practice where you're not seeing that reciprocation and energy from a guy who's being paid the big bucks and he's not helping pull the rope. Given the course of a regular season 82-game schedule. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts on it? You saw Dahlin do it earlier in the year, and that sparked the Sabres. They're 3-1. I think they're 3-1-1 since he ended up scrapping with Krebs.
Yeah, and that was actually like a low hip check that started the entire thing. This one, I have no idea how it started, but you said it all perfectly. I hate to agree with you this much, but I think J.T. Miller is a little psychotic on the ice in practice and in games, and that's a compliment. Kind of the way you look at, like, this guy is a competitive dog that never
McKinnon does the same shit.
Exactly. And I think he looks at Pettersson and his how good he can be, and then to see him not give it at all, it just probably drives him insane. I wonder where Quinn Hughes is on this thing, because he's the captain,
reading
right?
Books.
What? Reading? He's reading books, but obviously when there's division like that or disagreements like that and how two people play or how two people view playing with each other on a team, the main leader, they're going to lean one way or the other. I would tend to think he's probably like, we need to see more out of you, Petey.
You know what Quinn Hughes is thinking?
What?
I ain't fucking winning shit if J.T. Miller's not here. So
yeah,
I better agree with what J.T. Miller has to say about the situation. And it seems like the reason that Quinn Hughes is captain is because he's calm demeanored, right? And you need that from a captain. It's the same reason that Landeskog was captain and McKinnon was an assistant. Nothing against how either of them lead, because you need both types of guys in the locker room. But you also need that J.T. Miller to go to a guy who doesn't mind confrontation, to a guy like Petey and saying, listen, motherfucker, we need you all invested. We need you going 10 out of 10 at practice and in games. And we need you setting the tone, because this is a hard cap league and you're making 11 goddamn sheets, buddy. That's what is happening right now.
A little bit more.
He's making what, 11.5?
Yeah, I think right around there.
Jesus Christ. It's even worse than I thought. But going back to the way we started the podcast about Lafreniere, you got to get to a point where something snaps, something switches. And if that switch goes off in Petey's head, he'll be a beast, because he can skate like the wind. He's got an incredible shot. His skills are out the yin yang. What I think is missing in him is that dog. And when you pay a guy $11.5 million, he fucking better have that somewhere inside of him. It might take a few more years to untap, but it better be in there, because if it ain't, then you're fucked paying a guy like that $11.5 million. So I look forward to seeing those memes or the memes where it's Petey and then a look inside his stomach where you got 3 different pit bulls. And then with the caption saying, he got that dog in him, boy.
You think that's where it's going?
You don't think he got it?
No. I think it's in there based on how he looked when he came over and dominated this league the beginning of last year. I was raving about him before he came over. I think Murls, or it might have been Jeff Marek who originally told me about.
But if
Hold on,
listen, as much as I love Mitchie Marner, he could put up 100 points, but I also can't say he's got that dog in him. So that's what Petey was doing. I don't know if he had that dog in him. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm gonna say, dogs, the guys with the dog in them, they don't care what anyone thinks about them outside their teammates and themselves. And Elliot was talking on his podcast about, I don't know if he was told or he maybe thinks, I don't remember the exact way he worded it, but that Pettersson's somebody who is reading everything about him. And that's interesting to me, hearing Elliot say that, who knows what's going on with this entire league and all the players. And whether or not it's him reading it or he said friends sending it to him, dogs, Crosbys, McKinnons, legends of the game, they're not reading press clippings about themselves. Or
you don't think Crosby's listening to Spittin' Chiclets?
Or articles. I hate to say it, Biz. Sid ain't listening. And if he does listen occasionally and then his name comes up, he shuts the thing off. Those players, and this is coming from somebody who didn't do that, who did it the other way, who was always worried about what everyone thought about me, fans or message boards growing up, shit that is just looking back so disappointing that I took part in and caring what anyone, like what truly successful person is going to be listening and caring about all these different comments from outsiders about them. I can't see it being common within truly successful people and champions in sports because they're about their business and they don't care what's going on the outside. And if Pettersson is doing that, that is something that will hinder him. I had no clue about any of this, and Elliot was talking about it, and he said the same thing. But to me, after doing the opposite of that and knowing my experience with caring about the outside,
that he's aware. He said that he's aware of the fact that he does read into it, or that's his assumption based on what he's heard. Like how was it framed? Because I didn't listen to that part, so
that's what I wish I could remember. That sucks.
Okay, that's
Probably not. I guess that's the difference.
Well, that's from all those concussions,
true sources.
All those concussions that Squanto has been giving you. You probably lost a little bit of memory in that regard.
I had Squanto on the ice today. He's kind of buzzing around there. He always skated with one foot, just push his left foot, but he'd get going pretty quick, but his right foot wouldn't move. It was like me at the end, turning like a Titanic. I got him out today.
He had the Georgia Rock going?
He did.
Okay.
I got him out there today. I said, hey, just run to me as fast as you can. Bing, 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 bing. And he starts kind of running on the ice toward me. I'm like, Squanto. And then like he goes against the boards. Go Leafs, go Leafs, go. And then immediately he's like, Spookly, this song. Oh my God, Grinnell, I might need you to add this song, this Spookly pumpkin song about not fitting in, and Spookly's a square, but the rest of the pumpkins are circles, and he doesn't fit in. And
we're officially off the rails. Where did he get this song from?
Spookly, that's all day with go Leaf, go Spookly. I need to pull up this song. I might have him come up here and sing it. But
Bring him up. We need Squanto appearance right now.
I'll see if he can come up, and at the end, we'll see if he can sing.
And by the way, I wasn't going to bring it up, but the reason the fucking Leafs are on a 3-game slide, it's because you're a motherfucker and you won't give him the goddamn jersey. Give him the fucking jersey. Give him the jersey right now, live on fucking on this podcast. Give him the goddamn jersey right fucking now and have him sing the song.
It's a birthday gift, Paul. And his birthday's coming up.
Buy your own fucking birthday gift for your kid. That's my gift. I determine when he gets the gift.
Here's the thing you don't understand. When the kids are 3, I determine everything that he gets. Everything. I determine everything.
Look at me. I'm the
Unless
captain.
It's grandparents. If grandparents sneak in, you can't do shit from out in Scottsdale. I'm not giving him the jersey yet.
I'll get on a one-way flight, motherfucker. I'm the captain of the ship now. I'm Squanto's dad. I'm Squanto's dad right now. There's a reason he's got that dark skin color, buddy.
Yeah.
From
Squanto
Yolande.
Bissing that. My life falls apart. What happened?
Imagine
you get
that
the
drama.
Nantucket house. No.
Oh no!
Shit.
I'm driving your Escalade. Hey, Willie.
Yeah, no, good. I want that thing to get stolen. I'm trying to get it stolen. I actually can't say that. If I ever get stolen, insurance I won't pay.
Oh, great! You'll just have to buy a new one, you rich fuck.
Staying around the league.
What were we just talking about? Going back to Pettersson. So you don't know exactly how you heard about that.
No.
But if he is listening, and he does listen, and he reads I would say
to everything.
They're playing the Carolina Hurricanes next. That's tonight. So maybe he gets an early pod drop. I would just go out there. Go ask Brent Burns to go. Just go. Go up to whoever Carolina's toughest guy is, tap him on the shin pads, throw down. Even if you get beat up, I did my whole fucking career. You'll get back to the locker room. Every player in the locker room will be like, fucking right, Speedy, fucking right. That's the spark that he needs. And then he'll go on an absolute heater. That's my theory. He needs to drop the mitts and get everybody back on Petey's side.
I don't hate it.
You got to go right up to Brent
because
Burns.
it would be just a weight off his shoulder at the end, get some of the stress out, and the teammates, he'd probably go on like a 20-point and 10-game run.
I would go up to Brent Burns, I'd drop my glove, I'd pull on his beard, and then boom, you're off and running.
Before we continue, guys, hockey season is back. It's in full swing, and we can't wait to get out to some of the games this fall with the help of Game Time, the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. There's no feeling like seeing a breakaway goal in person, and Game Time can help. You know how much we love Game Time. Now, with their brand new Game Time Picks features, they're making it even easier to get to a game. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets for an NHL or college hockey game near you. Just pull up your chosen event and turn on the GT Pick setting at the top of the screen, or browse the best local Game Time Pick deals near you on your Game Time app homepage. The Winter Classic is coming up at Wrigley in a couple months. We will be there. I can't wait. It's thanks to Game Time. And Game Time is running a couple special zone deals. From now till December 2nd, you can get 10% off bleacher seats and between 20 and 25% off seats in the home plate area. So bleachers is fun. Your party, you're ripping it up. You get 10% off there. You want to sit a little closer to the action, 20 to 25% off the home plate area seats. Get your Winter Classic tickets now with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Chiclets for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHICLETS. That's Chiclets for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. No surprise whatsoever down in Florida. The Panthers signed Paul Maurice to a multi-year extension. This guy, Amazon star, turns into a media darling, wins a Stanley Cup after what felt like forever in this league without being able to get one after losing in the finals. Maybe the biggest no-brainer or nothing burger, as you like to put it, news, because it was just so obvious it was going to happen.
I mean, the ride from him resigning as Jets head coach to finding the perfect landing spot with the perfect group of guys in Florida. And you mentioned him being a media darling, probably the most entertaining head coach in a long time. I mean, you could maybe give that to Torts, but from at least a positive perspective and not completely carving his team all the time. The clips from the Amazon series of him getting down with the trapper and the blocker on, like, what an unreal guy. And he was so entertaining throughout that entire Stanley Cup run. Well-deserved extension. Now, you didn't mention a number. Did they mention a number?
I don't know the number.
I think that he's a guy who should be being paid north of $5 million. And if at this point his contract is structured where he's the highest paid coach in the NHL, well-deserved, because he's finally hit his stride and finally found his team. And I would say that most people have them potentially returning back to another Stanley Cup for their third season in a row. So just a wagon of a team, and they lock down. Think about the players and now him that they've locked up long-term. They got Forsling, they got Verhaeghe, they got Reinhart, Bennett's coming. Like, this is an incredible core that they have going in Florida, and something special brewing. So the state of hockey in the state of Florida is absolutely buzzing right now between Tampa and the Panthers.
If all the players' salaries are out there, then we should know his. I think the coach's salaries should be made public as well. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's up to him for discrepancy. Like,
I'm not saying it is, but it should be announced publicly if players' salaries are out there.
So I know that the Islanders, and we will be getting to them shortly, Lou does not announce what the players signed for. They just say the amount of term, but then eventually it comes out. So I'm sure if we dug hard enough that we could find out exactly what he's getting paid. But what would be your guess if you had to put a number on it?
I would think 5 years, 25 million. Yeah, I have. Maybe we're so
guess.
off base here, but that's why I want to know. And Verhaeghe, you mentioned him. He got his first of the year, kind of a slow start.
Well, his boy Barkov's back in the lineup, so I'm sure he's going to be potting a few more. So all things looking up for the Florida Panthers, and congrats to Paul Maurice.
And Bobrovsky gets his 400th win. I was shocked to see the quickest to ever do it in games played. It only took him 707 games. I knew he had the Vezinas, now the Cup, and everyone says Hall of Famer. Quickest to 400. Like, how, did that not surprise you as much as...
I was shocked when I saw that, especially at the fact that he started his career. He started in Philly and then moved over to Columbus, and he was in Columbus for a decent amount of time. So the fact that he was able to rack up those wins, now people also might argue, well, when he was there, he had to play fucking all 82 because he was their whole team. Well, I mean, it maybe makes a little bit more sense now, but just talk about a guy who's been through it all, and so happy that he's back at the top of his game and kicking the way that he once was after going through a few tough years there in Florida after signing that big ticket. But he will probably, by the time it's all said and done, be a Hall of Famer. And my understanding, his work ethic is second to none. He's the first guy at the rink every day, last guy to leave, and just like works relentlessly. And he's a machine in the gym. I think Jans was telling us about it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And to actually see him come back from being that lost and losing the job, and Alex Lyon getting them into the playoff, like, it was just such a wild story. And to see the roller coasters in pro sports, and especially goaltending, you're up, you're down, and he's done it for a long time. And I just couldn't believe that he was the guy to do it quickest in the history of the league.
And we talk sometimes about how different the live game experience of the NHL is between watching on television. If you ever have tickets to a Florida Panthers game, go to watch warm-ups and watch Bobrovsky in warm-ups from the minute he steps on the ice. It's one of the funnest, silliest routines you will ever see in your life. And the way that he can move his body and his ankle mobility and everything else, it's like the fucking ninth wonder of the world. It's nuts. So go check that out if you ever have the chance to get early to a Florida Panthers hockey game.
The Maple Leafs, Biz. The Maple Leafs. Well, just kind of shit in the bed lately. They make big news today, though. They signed Jake McCabe, who you like.
I like him.
You've raved about him a little bit. They signed him to a 5-year extension, 4.51 AAV. And like Seth Jarvis, he actually deferred some money to make the cap hit a little bit lower. So what did you think about the deal? Were you surprised? Do you like where the team's headed?
So I say this every year, or at least the last 3-4 seasons. It's like the Leafs will be 500 after 10 games, and then the world will be falling. Where they got a new coach, they're implementing new systems. There's a new direction, and it's going to take a little bit of time to figure things out. But I still believe that they have the right pieces and that they will figure it out. So that's from the team perspective and what I have to say. My understanding is Berube is trying to get them to play a little bit more direct, a little bit less east to west, and getting those top end guys to maybe play a little bit more physical. That's not easy, changing those things up in your game when you've been doing it as long as they've been doing it in the NHL. Have they been successful and very good in the regular season and been able to put up crazy amounts of points? Absolutely. So I don't want to hear about maybe early season struggles from some of their big guys when they're trying to implement a little bit more physicality into their game and then play a little bit more direct, where maybe it hasn't necessarily been like that in years prior. And that's a lot of the reason for Berube's snap show. And it will probably take about 20 to 30 games for them to really hit their stride once again, going back to the TNT call with Rick Bowness, he said sometimes it could take years to establish that. Let's hope not.
1967 was a long time ago.
We're hoping not for that long. We're hoping for months here, not years. But going back to the McCabe deal, I like him. He's big. He's solid. I think for a big player, he's a decent puck distributor. Is he Oliver Ekman-Larsson moving the puck? Is he maybe as good as Morgan Riley? No, but just a solid defender. He's physical. He ain't shy to drop the mitts. And given everything else they have on the back end, I think this is a fair market value for a guy who's going to probably play in your middle pairing once things are all said and done. So, yeah, I think that Tree Living's done an exceptional job since being a GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, including signing him to this extension.
I don't remember your preseason preview or pick. Do you have them winning the division as of right now?
I don't necessarily care so much about them winning the division. I might have said that being all excited about the regular season, but I'm just I more care about the process and how they're getting their wins. Going back to the game I watched against Boston, like them giving up those 2 quick goals at the end of the second period and then having a bullshit push in the third period, that's not something I want to see. I would have much rather see them play a little bit more physical and make a better push when they were on their heels come the crunch time of the game, especially having given up that lead so quickly. Happy with Marner's performance. Am I happy they end up getting the point out of it by getting that late goal? I thought that Austin Matthews was a beast come that last 3-4 minutes of the game, but not happy over the course of the last 3 games from what I've seen from a full body of work team wise.
Their power play is not great.
It stinks.
It makes no sense. Part of it is like, I don't know if Morgan Riley and I know Ekman Larsson's done it are true power play QB quarterbacks. I know Morgan Riley's had years. I don't know if you know
this, but Oliver Ekman Larsson had back-to-back 20-goal seasons in the NHL. I don't know if I've ever said
10. Was it 8 years ago? 9 years ago?
I know what you're saying. I think that Oliver Ekman Larsson is more of a true power play 1 defenseman than Morgan Riley is. I agree. I think it's kind of goes back to where in playoffs last year, maybe Hanifin was the guy controlling it rather than Shea Theodore, where I'd much rather see Oliver do that and then let Morgan Riley be that number 2 guy and let him figure out other areas of his game. And that's where he contributes. So I still don't think either of them are elite number 1 power play defensemen. They're no Cale Makar. They're no Quinn Hughes. But I think that the way that Oliver is able to walk the line and find lanes to the net, and it doesn't ever need to be a big clapper with him. It's just a quick flick of the wrist and him finding his lanes. And if you have good enough net front presence, that's where I feel that he can be effective on the power play for them. He's not that big shot. You got Nylander, who's got the big shot. You got Marner, who's the distributor most of the time. And then obviously Matthews. My biggest issue with it sometimes is Marner is a little bit too one-dimensional in the fact that he's always looking to pass it. The other game against Boston, like as much as their power play has been struggling, he gets it. Swayman still hasn't sit across yet. He had half the net to shoot at, and he's more worried about bumping it back to give Nylander the shot, where Marner has to become a threat shooting the way that Sidney Crosby added that to his game. He's got to add that to his game to be a dual threat. The power play will figure itself out. I agree with you. It's been dog shit so far this season, and that's been one of their problems. I've been long-winded enough. Leafs are still going to win the cup. We can all calm down.
Yeah, we know that. It was actually, the change was it was Nylander and Tavares on basically what looked like the second unit, because Matthews is on the first unit. So you think that they changing it up, kind of spreading them out a little bit. We'll see what happens there. And quick tidbit, because you mentioned Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar and the dominant offensive power play QBs. I think a lot of people look at Miro Heiskanen like that. I don't know if he has a point yet this year. Kind of crazy. Like the D in Dallas haven't done anything, and it hasn't slowed them down at all. They're still a machine.
I think he's so effective on being a one-man breakout. He could shut down other teams' top lines. He can kill penalties. He might not be the second assist guy in the power play, but he's probably the reason it's getting up the ice in a clean zone entry. So there are so many offensively skilled players there where they're collecting the points. He's just going to go about his business. He's already gotten his payday. I think Heiskanen, I wouldn't even be concerned if he didn't get a point in the first 20 games.
I must have read an article from right when we finished last week's episode, because he has 3 assists in 9 games.
Okay, well there you go.
That's not even close to being true what I said. So
panic button.
Mea
panic
culpa.
Button time.
Mea culpa. God, that's classic right there. The St. Louis Blues. Okay, you talked about their hard working, their old school. Jake Neighbors, they signed. Yep. And I mentioned, I think, in one of the summer episodes, him and Kevin Hayes became good buddies. So he was out here doing something for Bauer, and we played golf with him. You talk about a hardworking, old school team. I said it then, I'll say it again. he's basically from the 1980s, just old school. Loves playing hard, physical, can score, and they signed him to an extension. So it's actually a 2-year one, 3.75 bridge deal. Go out and get 30 again the next couple years, and then you're hitting a big payday. So pretty
Then
cool
you're
to
getting
see.
what they paid the other two guys.
But what I have to say most about the Blues, Broberg is who Broberg was in the finals.
I knew that was coming.
So did I. And do you remember Paul Coffey's son in Daryl Cates' box at Edmonton, the second box that we were spending time in? He told me his dad said, I think this kid's going to be a star. Like, he's going to be unbelievable. And then to see what he did in the playoffs, and I'm like, yes, like this guy, like he's going to take over. Like, you just adding a big time player to this decor with Bouchard and Ekholm, and the Blues and Army. What a move it turns out right now. He's got 7 points in 9 games. He's playing a ton. His skating is so good, and he looks phenomenal. That's a kick in the dick to Edmonton. Kick in the dick.
I don't like being critical oftentimes about like GM moves and like not doing one thing or the other. The fact that they didn't find a way to bring both those guys back is absolute lunacy.
What was crazy is at the time, most people were saying, you can't match Broberg, but you should match Holloway. Now it's like, I guess with their current cap situation and the Leon deal wasn't done yet, like maybe they couldn't have matched Broberg, but figure it out. Do something. I'm Monday morning quarterbacking right now, but to see how he looked in the finals, where he was arguably the best defenseman on the Oilers, to just lead right into this year, playing 20 minutes a game and looking this smooth and confident out there. It's like we saw this in the toughest games of his career. It's disappointing to say the least, Biz.
I'm trying to look it up right now, Whit. I'm a bit of sometimes
what are you looking up?
I lose track of these things. Is he a right-handed shot?
No, he's a lefty.
Okay, I was going to say
if he was a righty, I think they would have.
I would have hung up. I would have been off the Zoom. You're going to be trading the future to try to get Rasmus Anderson when you had your Rasmus Anderson, who's way younger and probably more offensive upside. So I just think I think the Oilers are the second best team in Alberta, and I'm sticking to what I'm saying.
Well, we're going back to New York now and the Islanders.
Oh,
the interesting, same old, boring Islanders. And I've had a love-hate with this fan base. I hated them, and then I loved them, and then they hated me, and they never loved me. But now it's kind of turning into a little bit of a comedy show there. Their third period leads, they've blown 4 3-goal leads dating back to November 2023 from Rob Taub in Biz's DMs. Attendance issues, and we'll let you go into everything. But today or yesterday, Patrick was asked about the recall of Pierre Engvall, who I think signed a 7-year deal. He was put on waivers. He's in the minors. He comes back up. Matt Martin signed. Matty Martin's been there forever. What a career he's had there. But people are like, these are the 2 moves. And Patrick Waugh, when asked after the game, he pretty much made it clear, I thought, that it was Lou decisions, because he talked about what each guy did, and Lou thought it was a good time for Engvall to come up. And you know, Matt Martin brings leadership and toughness, stuff we need, and Lou thinks we need that too. Just weird comments to throw to maybe make it seem like it wasn't his idea to make these moves, no?
I think that he's a smart guy and he knows how to choose his words. I'm interested to hear if he backs off of them, but to automatically say that they were, Lou thinks this and Lou thinks that is, how do I put this? Well, that didn't take long. You thought Patty Waugh was going to come in. It was going to be smooth sailing. He's a changed guy. Boys, that fire runs deep in that belly and it's hard to change. What's the saying about you can't change a leopard's stripes?
The fact that I think that's wrong, but I don't know the answer, is just this show in a nutshell, I guess. What is it, G?
This one. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And Patty Waugh's probably fed up with what he's seeing from Lou Lamoriello. And if you don't think I'm ready to stir this pot, I would love.
It doesn't even need stirring right now, though.
To see this escalate a little bit more. And I'll tell you, it just might take a few more blown leads, because you just said it the other day. I talked at the beginning of the year, and even some of their fan base is coming at me like, oh, it was one game. Why are you being hyperbolic about the fact that they blew a third period lead? What are you talking about? It's literally their MO. They're up 3-0 on the Florida Panthers and give up 6 unanswered goals. That's all they do is give up these leads. It dates back to last season where go to that Rob Taub's Instagram or Twitter, excuse me. He'll tell you every fucking lead they've given up. They snuck into playoffs last year, thankfully, because Patrick Waugh came and saved the day.
Varlamov saved the day.
He probably goalie whispered to his goalie saying, just get us in, just get us in. And the same problems haven't been solved. They keep giving up these leads after leads. And according to Patty Waugh, it has a lot to do with personnel. And who's responsible for the personnel?
That would be Lou Lamoriello.
That would be Lou. Now, I'll throw it back at you. This guy is a Hall of Famer. He's done it all. Multiple Stanley Cups. He will go down as a legend in the game. But has Lou's time passed?
I'm not willing. We interviewed Jay Pandolfo.
Have some balls and fucking tell me what you think, bro.
Forget that he's older. It's more that this team is just, now they signed Horvat. They made that deal. They're hanging on to the Eastern Conference Finals appearances and the core that got them there has gotten older and there just hasn't been much change. There isn't much excitement there. Horvat's been great, but if you look at the game against Florida, I don't know which goal in the game it was, but it's Tkachuk in the crease, dude. He skates from behind the net. The puck's coming in from the point. He cross-checks before the puck is even near the net. He cross-checks Varlamov. It's incredible. No call, just Tkachuk being Tkachuk.
Well, Dobson's not going to do anything.
Then he gets right in the crease, pretty much, causes a screen. There's havoc in front. He steps in there. He gets about 3 whacks, buries it. And Mayfield and the Shalalski, I'm sorry, I don't know. He was a first rounder with Detroit years ago because I looked him up and I don't know his name exactly. I'm sorry. They're just standing there and Tkachuk's just they just bitched him. That was the game. That was you're up 3-0. We don't care. Boom. Here's 6. It was the Panthers bullying him and the Islanders kind of doing their thing. So as the game passed by Lou, who the fuck am I to say? It just seems that the team right now, what direction are they headed? And the attendance issues are weird. I asked Frankie about it last year. He's like, it's hard to get to that area at 7:00 or I don't know if that was brought up to you as well, but
yeah, they did a Glendale. They did a Glendale. It's at the Belmont. It's great.
Dude, when we went to that rink for FDNY NYPD, getting there and getting out of there, it was what? It was it's just in the middle of nowhere.
Now, with all this said, they're probably going to turn around and go on a run because we're grilling them. But like you said, it seems like they're really hanging on the fact they should have won the Stanley Cup when they lost 1-0 to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Eastern Conference Finals, in which they would have went on to play the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
And they would have a ring. So
they would have a ring. Do you remember who scored that goal for Tampa? Yanni Gourde.
Yanni Gourde.
Unless he made the pass to somebody out of the corner.
Oh, here we go. Here we fucking go.
Yanni Gourde actually doesn't.
We
Yanni
should call
Gourde
this the Maya Culpa podcast.
He does not have a goal yet this year. 9 games, 0 goals. Kind of surprising there. We'll see what happens in Long Island, but Biz, you're loving that. You're loving that drama. McKinnon presented Jokic with the MVP trophy, just like Jokic did for him. The Avs are the first team since 42-43 to open the season losing 4 straight in regulation and then winning their next 4. They got it going. Cale Makar is on, I think, 110-point pace. The dog is the dog. Middle stats flying now. We maybe the worries and the judgment of the Avs right off the hop were just a little overblown.
Yeah, no, I mean they've been incredible. They flipped the switch, and you just got to go back to Cale Makar. And actually, I think he's went on an insane run since he called himself out after they started. He was very hard on himself, and in the media said, "I think our team would have been better without me on the ice." Well, that's not the case moving forward after those comments, because he's a freak of nature. He's the best defenseman in the world, and I think his start to the year just exemplifies that. What a word by me.
Exemplifies is top notch for you. I'll give you serious credit on that one, Oshanti. But Ross Colton? I mean,
Yeah, he's
did
buzzing.
you see this? What'd you call him in the group chat? Just a lightning bolt or a lightning rod?
He's a lightning rod, him and Cotter.
I think he's even got maybe a little more goal scoring ability than Cotter, but both, like you're saying, just pain in the ass to play against, like just compete out there and can also have some scoring touch.
Well, yeah, and Colorado's a team that likes to play with pace, and he has unreal wheels. And sometimes you find guys who have unreal wheels where they're better in a checking role and just, get it turned, but they don't have that finish. Well, now that he's getting to play on the top line and he's getting distributions from McKinnon and those other guys, I mean, he's making the best of his situation right now, and it's awesome to see. It's and a much needed spark that they needed without Nichushkin, without Lehkonen. I think Lehkonen is back now, but without Landeskog. So anytime you can have a guy unexpectedly come in and pop off the way he's popping off, I mean, good for him. And I don't know if he's up for contract or he just signed with them, but whew, what a year, what a start to the year for that guy.
Speaking of wheels, Miles Wood. When he gets
flies.
He might be one of the fastest players. He can get breakaways like I've never seen. He doesn't bury them really, but
he's like a Grabner, modern day Grabner.
Yeah, Grabner. That's a good one. But he's also a tank. He's enormous. So that's a nice guy that they got there flying around. I still see Lehkonen on the IR on this site.
Okay, no, he's not back then.
But Drouin's out, and obviously Nichushkin and Landeskog. Colorado's figured it out. Colorado now is flying and buzzing. Tage Thompson. So I guess in 2022, they started recording, not sure of the exact date, they started recording like NHL stats, how fast shots were going, how fast players were skating. Tage Thompson set the record for the fastest shot in a game, 104.9. Rocket. He's that big and long, just uses his leverage. He's like a tall, long drive guy in golf that just is so big that can bring the club or the stick back so far and rips it. So he's off to a good start.
I think he uses a fairly short stick based on his size too. Based on his size, and I could be completely wrong as I usually am. And then it goes back to Martin Biron coming on and saying that he's back to himself again with no shoulder injury. Last year he was dealing with that shoulder injury, and even when he came back from it and he was still a little bit tentative to shoot it. And then finally he started unleashing it because he felt more comfortable in the way that it had healed. And now you could just see that he's himself. And he said that you asked him, is he more of like what we saw last year or what we saw when he almost had 50 goals? And Martin Biron said that he's a 50 goal guy. He is him, as they say. And it looks like he's back to his old ways, and Buffalo's back in the winning ways too. They're coming back in the picture.
It's crazy. The two Florida teams are sitting up top, Panthers, Lightning, and then I think every other team is 500. 4-4-1, three of them, 3-3 or whatever, 4-4. So kind of going to be a wild year in that division, I think. No surprise there. The Four Nations biz, I am so fired up for this. We're going to be in Montreal. We're going to be in Boston. Cannot wait. Little tune-up, little appetizer to next year's Olympics. The jerseys were released. No surprise at all. The guys in the picture, USA is Austin Matthews wearing the jersey. We got Crosby in Canada. We got Aho for Finland and Hedman for Sweden. I have a bet with a random listener and a few other people as well, but a random guy through Twitter, I think, $1,000, US Canada to win the next best on best. Might have been made 2 years ago. I've never been more confident than now. Your jerseys stink. I don't like your jerseys at all.
I tend to like Canada when they're a little bit more traditional. I thought that this one
through is just weird.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about them. I would say of all the jerseys, I probably like them the least. Sweden's are the best. I would probably put Finland as next best. And then USA, Canada, you can flip them out either or. I just don't like the fact that it says Canada. I'm pretty sure people are aware that big red maple leaf in the middle of the jersey is Canada. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory.
What international jersey have you never seen the name of the country on the front?
No, just in the fact that it's in the maple leaf. I don't like that
it should be above the maple leaf.
Yeah, and or below, or just or if
I more think it's the lines, the white lines through the middle. If it was just the red jersey with that leaf, I wouldn't dislike it as much. I do agree though. Sweden, is it the Tre Kroner? That could be. Gee, look up the symbol name of the Swedish Three Crowns. That's always been sick. Hedman's wearing the yellow, their blue jersey. I believe I got a Lidstrom one from my dad one year when I was very young, or maybe Sundin. It might have been Sundin, a 13 blue. Oh, okay, yeah.
See how all of them are below it and not right through the middle of it?
Yes. That's Canada. He's showing for the YouTube people. Tre Kroner. I guess I had it. Gee, thank you. And Sweden doesn't have the name on the front. I just asked you what team doesn't have the name of their country on the front of the jersey, and G helped you out with Sweden. As I was looking at the picture, I asked that. That's how dumb I can be sometimes. Jesus Christ, Whit. Crosby, no doubt in my mind, is the captain of that team. Connor McDavid came out and agreed just with the same thing. And he said he should be the captain. And I assume you're in the same boat here. Like, this is Sidney Crosby here, guys. No doubt.
Why was that brought up? Did they announce Connor McDavid as captain?
Oh, no. I think McDavid was just randomly asked about it.
Biz, I think it was because in the original post that was released, it was Connor in the graphic. It wasn't Sid. And then when they released the jersey, it was Sid.
Okay, yeah, I think that this is like the single dumbest discussion we've ever had in this podcast. If you don't think Sidney Crosby should be captain of Team Canada, where he's already won them gold, put him in a put that person in a rocket ship and shoot him out in outer space.
And as we wrap up here, Biz, kind of a cool story from the sale of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jeff Vinik is paying out about $20 million in bonuses to the organization's more than 300 employees following his sale of a majority stake in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Each full-time employee will receive $50,000 to $66,000. That's awesome. That is like pretty cool to see that happening. And you see how much he appreciates everyone that's put everything into this. I don't know if it was is it the 300 employees of the Lightning or of like,
I think anybody that helped him get to the place that he's at where he can sell a majority stake in that team and make a very handsome return. I think a lot of it also has to do with the development around the arena. And this is an owner who, when all the chaos was happening with the Hurricanes a few weeks back, he flew all the families of the Tampa Bay Lightning, including pets like cats and dogs, to Carolina to get out of the chaos that was going down. So this guy is just the ultimate owner. That's what, in order to win championships, you need owners that are all in. Mike, like we saw with the Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers, you talked about their owner and how dialed in he is, and he makes their lives so easy where they don't have any worries outside of just worrying what they need to worry about on the ice. So just an all-time move, and taking a page out of Mark Cuban's book and doing the same thing where, those are the people that got him the success financially and helped with that. So kudos to him, and just an awesome story. And couldn't be happier for those people. I'm sure that in some cases it's like winning the lottery for some of them. Pays their mortgage for a couple of years, allows them to go on a big family vacation, take a little bit of financial stress away.
Nice big bonus for those people who deserve it. Before we wrap up, I do want to remind everyone, this is kind of the last chance to buy the breast cancer awareness merch that we have. You can go to barstoolsports.com/chiclets. It went to the breasties. Biz is rocking the hoodie right now. I'm sure G is as well, or has been. I got a nice one he gave me. There it is right there, the black one. Help out a great cause. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can see the last sandbagger from last week, Brandon Prust and Robbie Schremp, dummied us, sandbagged us, owned us in every which way. We got one coming out soon with Tuukka Rask and Andrew Raycroft. That was a lot of fun to do. And the YouTube Biz has already told us 55,000?
355.
Wow. So we might get to 400. You think we can get to 400 by the end of the season?
I think if the Chiclets use and the sandbaggers keep bumping and people don't hate Pasha's guts that
bad. Grow some balls.
I think, yes, we can hit it if people stop hating Pasha's guts so hard. So he was nice to all you Rangers fans this pod. He said the Trouba hit was clean and that the Laffy Taffy, the deal was a bargoon. So do Pasha a favor and subscribe to the Spittin Chiclets YouTube channel, baby.
The Army version of Chiclets U, Wednesday at noon. We love you all. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Peace, Biz.
Peace.